Mr. 3, Miss. Golden Week, Miss. Valentine, you are all on this ship? Von Cry, who was still struggling with whether or not to take action, disappeared after seeing Makita on the observation deck. Even if it is one-on-one, he may not be able to kill Mr. Point 3 in a head-to-head battle, not to mention his partner Miss. Golden Week is there. On this small ship, Miss. Golden Week's ability is too much a threat to itself. Now I have to add Miss. Valentine. Although Von Cry is confident, he is not stupid. Moreover, there are more than 3 of them on the ship, and the other people on this ship, Von Cry, do not know how strong they are. If you act rashly, you can only be unlucky. Therefore, after thinking about it for a while, Von Cry decisively jumped on the edge of the Mary, and waited for his ship to arrive, and ensured that he could leave as soon as possible. Now is the time to show off your eloquence. Von Clay was thinking about how to delay the time, but Galtino didn't want to give him a chance to breathe. Before even Makita could answer Von Clay, he took the lead. After all, the other party came to kill him, and he couldn't count on Luffy and the others to help him. Although Luffy invited himself and Mariano to board the ship, he bluntly refused. Now I just hope that they don't get in trouble. As for helping himself, Galtino doesn't dare to think about it at all. Even Mariano might not be able to help himself. After all, Luffy completely treats her as a crew member, completely different from her dispensable person. Once Luffy limits Mariano's shot, it is very dangerous to face Mr. 2 alone. The hands that turned into liquid candles swung violently towards the edge of the boat to which Bentham was jumping. A cloud of white liquid candles quickly flew to the feet of Von Cry, who had just fallen. I saw Von Cry suddenly take a light dance step, and at the moment when he just landed on the edge of the boat, his feet wearing swan shoes spun. Then the body moved to the side, cleverly dodging the white liquid candle released by Galtino. The white liquid candle lost its target, attached directly to the rim of the Mary, and then quickly solidified. 3. Stop me, are you trying to dismantle my boat? Although I'd love to have a lively look, if I hurt my Mary, Luffy might be tempted to tear them apart. So, Luffy directly stopped Galtino, who wanted to continue shooting. When Galtino heard Luffy's voice, he could only reluctantly give up his plan to continue shooting. After all, Luffy's strength is not something he can compete with. If he angers him, he may really have no way out. Don't look at how Luffy doesn't treat himself right now, but people's patience is limited after all. Maybe he can tolerate the mischief of his crew, but he is not yet his crew. Maybe he should make a decision as soon as possible. Mr. 3 actually listened to that man like that? Von Cry looked at the man who made the voice in disbelief, and when he saw the man wearing a straw hat, Bentham finally felt a touch of familiarity. It was him? Bentham was a little surprised. The rookie pirate that was uploaded by the sea before had a bounty of 90 million Baileys for the first time, the Straw Hat Boy, Monkey D. Luffy. Mr. 3 and they actually joined the Straw Hat Pirates. This is a little troublesome. Don't look at Von Clay's funny look all day, but his mind is not simple. After all, he can be Mr. 2 of the Baroque Work Club. If he can only be funny, then it is really funny. HMPH, since what Luffy said, I'll let you go this time. After all, it is a frontal battle, or in a small pirate ship, Galtino's ability is better displayed. Although Von Cry has a powerful she-male boxing technique in addition to devil fruit ability, Luffy obviously won't let him mess up. If Luffy can be attracted, it will be even more good for Galtino. The slave family is not afraid of you. Von Cry didn't care about Galtino's harsh words at all. But since Captain Straw Hat has spoken, then the slave family is not a disrespectful person, not to mention that it is indeed you who saved the slave family this time. The slave family naturally does not want to retaliate. Luffy got goosebumps with her pretending to be a woman, and Nami next to him couldn't help rubbing his arms with both hands. Other people's pirate ships can't be boarded casually. Zoro's hand hadn't left the hilt since Von Clay appeared on the Mary. Wow, is this also human? Chopper, who has been in a state of fright since Von Cree appeared, finally sees the face of the other party. The slave family is of course human, but unlike them, the slave family is a new human being. Hearing Chopper's question, Von Cry replied subconsciously. The civet cat has spoken. Bastard, I'm a reindeer, not a civet cat. Chopper, who was still curious about what the new human was, immediately became furious after being mistaken for a civet cat by Von Cry. This is the end of the joke. Mr. 2 of the Baroque Society, Von Cree. Please spend some time as a guest on the Mary before solving the Baroque Society. Seeing that the topic was about to go wrong again, Luffy directly interrupted the conversation between one person and one deer. Is the Straw Hat Captain inviting the slave family? Thank you so much. Not only did you save the slave family's life, but also invited the slave family to be a guest. You are indeed a good person. I don't know if he really couldn't understand Luffy's words, or if he was pretending not to understand, and kept wiping his heavily made-up eyes. If you are disgusting with me, I will do it myself. Luffy just looked calmly at Von Cry, who was wiping tears, completely wondering what Bai was moving. Apparently stunned by Luffy's words, Von Cry did not continue to cry, nor did he continue to do other funny behaviors. Just looking at Luffy with a rather dignified expression, he could feel that Luffy's words were not just words. Originally, I wanted to use my eloquence to delay time, but now it seems that I can't do it. Von Clay tensed up under Luffy's gaze, ready to attack or escape. Although he didn't know how strong Luffy was, he subconsciously told himself that he would not be his opponent. You can only hope that your ship can catch up quickly, and then turn around and run away. For the first time, Von Cry felt that the devil fruit he ate was so unsightly, otherwise he might try diving to escape. Don't think about running away, you can't escape. Looking at Von Cry's cautiously tightening his body, Luffy just smiled. Why did Captain Straw Hat have to stay with the slave family? Looking at the people around him, Von Cly stopped struggling, jumped onto the deck and sat down on the spot. Your ability is still very troublesome without knowing it. In order to avoid accidents, it is better to invite you to be a guest here during this time. Although it is only a bit of trouble, if it can be solved in advance, it can save a lot of trouble. Is he also demon fruit power? Hearing Luffy's words, Nami, who was standing beside Luffy, asked curiously. Since entering the Grand Line, there have been many demon fruit powers encountered along the way. The abilities of various devil fruit are quite attractive to Nami who have never seen devil fruit before. Clone fruit ability can touch someone's face with the right hand, and then change into the other person's appearance, including body, voice and so on. Clone fruit's abilities still need attention, so Luffy explained it here to the people on board. During the time he's on the boat, you'd better not approach him and avoid being imitated by him. When Luffy said the ability of Von Cry's fruit, Von Cry was shocked. Could it be that Mr. Point 3 and the others told Luffy about his abilities? But even if they knew that they were clone fruit users, it was impossible for them to know the conditions for their ability to activate. He had never cast abilities in front of them, so how did the Straw Hat Boy know about this? Bentham is even more worried about what happened to him. Luffy, the Straw Hat, seems to have a very good intelligence system. Coupled with his unfathomable strength, will he directly kill himself after learning about his past? After all, he looks like he hates the feeling of a new human being. Just when Von Cry was frightened, Vivi and Sanji, who heard the movement outside, came out of Nami's room and the kitchen respectively. Luffy, what happened? Seeing that everyone was in a circle, surrounded by a man with strange clothes and strange makeup in the corner, Vivi couldn't help asking. After these 2 days, Vivi no longer added the word Mr. Luffy when calling him Luffy. Vivi, come here, I'll tell you. Seeing Vivi come out of the room, Nami immediately trotted over and hugged Vivi's arm affectionately, looking like a good girlfriend. Hey, Chlorella, what happened? While Nami and Vivi were whispering, Sanji, who also didn't understand the situation, asked Sun Long. It's just an uninvited guest on the boat, by the way, erotic cook, are you interested in she-males? Zoro withdrew his grip on the hilt and sat down again against the main mast. For Sanji's question, Zoro simply answered it, and at the end, he asked Sanji maliciously. Huh? Idiot green algae head, I'm only interested in beauties, all the she-males and all go to hell. As if out of some instinct, Sanji answered Zoro's question without hesitation. Von Cry, who was sitting on the deck listening to their conversation, was taken aback by Sanji's words. Darling, this curly-browed cook seems to hate she-males even more than Straw Hat. I always felt that it would be dangerous to stay on this ship. You bastard with curly eyebrows, erotic cook, why don't you like she-males? No one cared about Von Clay's fear, and Zoro and Sanji tended to fight again. And Nami, who finished telling Vivi what happened, also took Vivi's hand and walked to Luffy's side. It's just that Vivi still didn't seem to dare to face Luffy, and just kept standing beside Luffy with his head down. Usopp, work. Luffy shouted to Usopp to the side. Unlike other people, Von Cry can't let him move freely. This kind of active person, let him stay on the Mary, who knows what will happen. Moreover, in the original book, he dared to act like Nami and do that kind of thing. Luffy thought it was better to be vigilant. Oh, got it. Chopper, tie him up with me. Finally, there is no need for one person to do things like tying people. With Chopper as his partner, Usopp feels that his legs are no longer shaking, and the tying people are a lot easier. Oh, here we come. Chopper obeyed Usopp completely, and the two quickly tied up Von Kree, who did not dare to resist. Captain Straw Hat, do you really want to do this to the slave family? Von Kree, who was tied up, still did not give up and tried to intercede with Luffy. However, seeing his she-male makeup and contrived wiping of tears, Luffy felt his stomach twitching. Ah, boss. Why did you get caught? On the side of the Mary, a ship was approaching, and the people on the ship immediately asked loudly after seeing what happened to their boss on the Mary. Let your people go back, or I can't guarantee that they will survive. Luffy didn't want to talk too much about these little guys. It would be best if Von Kree could persuade them back, otherwise Luffy would attack directly. Don't do it, I'll tell them. For these subordinates, Von Kree still quite liked them, and they couldn't be beaten together anyway, so let them go back. Maybe we'll be able to move to rescue soldiers to save himself. Hey, lil ones, go back first, I'm going to be a guest here for a while, so I won't go with you. Von Kree was escorted by Usopp and stood on the side of the Mary, and then instructed the younger brothers on the approaching ship. But boss, you don't look like you're a guest. I can't see that these little brothers still have some sense of loyalty. After seeing the boss being arrested, they didn't run away as soon as possible. Don't worry. This is a special etiquette between me and my friends, you don't have to worry. Okay, that's it, you go back. Feeling the sight that Luffy had already cast over, Von Kree didn't dare to say more. The younger brothers looked at each other in dismay, completely ignoring what happened to their boss. But since the boss has said so, as a younger brother, it is natural to execute it. Soon, the ship carrying Von Kree's little brothers gradually drifted away. After this, you can stay on the Mary for a while, and when the purpose of our line is completed, you will be released. Looking at Von Kree, who was quite cooperative, Luffy didn't continue to intimidate him. It is enough to do this level, and there will be no better effect if you continue, so there is no need to waste your words. Since entering the Alabasta waters, the weather has been sunny. When I first entered the Grand Line, the weather was changing all the time. Alabasta is the kingdom of the desert. You may not feel it at sea now, but after landing on the island, it will be very hot, so you have to be prepared. Seeing that he was about to log into Alabasta, Vivi had to warn in advance. Will it be hot? But I can't stand the hot weather. Hearing Vivi's reminder, Chopper was the first to jump up. No way. The reindeer born on Winter Island naturally grow with fur to resist the severe cold. Hey, that sea beast looks like a cat, is it Sea King's? I don't know if it tastes good or not. Luffy looked at a sea beast from the bottom of the sea and stared blankly at the Mary. The sea beast has a cat face, and the upper body is basically the body of a cat, but if you look closely, you will find that behind the sea beast is a row of dorsal fins of fish. That's a sea cat. It's a sacred creature in Alabasta and can't be eaten, and you idiot, Luffy, are too edible. Of course, Luffy had an impression on this matter, but sometimes, being too serious all the time would make people feel distant, so Luffy pretended not to know about it. Sure enough, after hearing Luffy's words, Vivi couldn't care less about being shy, and immediately wanted to stop Luffy. But when looking up at Luffy, Vivi saw that familiar face with a slight smile. Vivi, who only realized that he had been deceived, couldn't help but patted Luffy's arm. But also because of this, Vivi found that he didn't seem so embarrassed. Now that the sea cat has appeared, it means that we are indeed approaching Alabasta. With such a small episode, Vivi did not continue to bow his head, but began to introduce some things about Alabasta to everyone. Come on everyone, you can see the port. Usopp and Chopper, who had been fishing all the time, saw the existence of a port in front of them for the first time, and immediately greeted everyone on the Mary. But there seemed to be a lot of ships behind us. Zoro, who was resting with his back against the main mast, opened his eyes after hearing the sound, but the first sight he saw was a row of ships approaching from the side and rear. Look at the mark, it's the ship of the Baroque Works Society. If I guessed correctly, those should be the subordinates of the senior agents of the Baroque Works Society, hundreds of millions of elders. There were several agents of the original Baroque Work Club on board, and one current agent was tied up. Naturally, he knew what the Baroque Work Club marked. How about you want to shoot them down now? With Chopper as an inseparable sidekick, Usopp's guts seemed to be growing. In the past, when facing so many people, he didn't dare to say loudly that he wanted to destroy each other. The naval battle is not good for us. After all, they have so many ships, and it is enough for us to shoot one gun per ship. Nami immediately retorted that if they fought in the sea, the Mary, who was fighting alone, would be very passive. 3. How can your candle block the shelling? Luffy wanted to kill all those hundreds of millions of elders here, nibbling away step by step, so that these people could make trouble at a critical moment. Galtino doesn't care what Luffy calls him now, and now he has to consider whether to stand on Luffy's side. However, when he caught a glimpse of Von Cry who was tied to the corner, Galtino made a decision. Okay, the cannonballs on the ship can't penetrate my candle wall, I will protect the ship. Luffy glanced at Galtino and smiled slightly. It seemed that this one also agreed to get on the boat. In that case, Usopp, start the bombardment. Wait for the rest of the ships to get close, and then start the battle. There are a total of 10 Baroque Workers ships with a total of 200 billions of elders, and Luffy has no plans to shoot. They're all little bastards, and it's not enough to let Haki stun them. Oh. Including Sanji who came out of the kitchen, they all agreed. Vivi looked at Luffy standing on the bow with a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. Logging into Alabasta this time means that he is about to part with Luffy. Nami just glanced at it, but there was nothing he could do. After all, as a princess of a country, Vivi could not travel the world with Luffy. Boom. Usopp, who was the first to walk to the bow, set the position of the cannon and fired a cannon directly in front of him. The shells accurately hit the nearest Baroque Works ship, directly blowing up half of the bow of that ship. When I saw the hit ship, people immediately began to jump into the sea one by one. Apparently the ship was damaged beyond rescue after being hit by shells. So these people made an immediate decision, jumped off the sinking ship, and swam towards the next boat. Wow, Usopp is amazing. Several people from East Blue already knew about Usopp's shooting skills. But Chopper, who had just joined, didn't know much about it, and at this moment, seeing Usopp's accurate shooting, he naturally exclaimed. Galtino and the others also looked at Usopp with surprise. I thought that this man had no other characteristics except for being timid and talking big, but he didn't expect him to have such accurate shooting skills. Haha, of course, when it comes to shooting, you, Master Usopp, have never been afraid of anyone. Usopp clearly took advantage of Chopper's compliments, instantly restoring his big talker image. But happy to be happy, the guns still have to continue to shoot, it is best to sink them all before the ships arrive. Thinking like this, Usopp fired another cannonball, and another Baroque Works ship that had not arrived yet and was on guard was hit. However, this time, the ship was not directly destroyed, but the hull was damaged a little, and the impact was not loud. Then, the ships of the hundreds of millions of elders who finally reacted, all pointed their bows at the Mary, and the muzzles of the bows were raised one by one. Boom, 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 a series of shelling sounds came, but there were few shells that could reach this distance. The shells shot into the sea, causing waves to rock the Mary from side to side. However, with Nami around, there is no need to worry about the Mary's capsize in such a wave. Soon, after Usopp fired the fourth shell, the opponents shot. The shells were finally able to reach the Mary. At this time, Galtino, who was already standing on the bow, turned his hands into liquid candles and waved in front of him. A wall of liquid candles quickly forms and then solidifies. Boom, a cannonball landed precisely on the white candle wall in front of the Mary, and then exploded. Luffy glanced at the front of the candle wall with observation Haki, and other than a slight melt from the heat, it didn't shatter from the impact. It's no wonder that Zoro, who didn't reach the realm of cutting iron in the original work, couldn't cut through the words Hidaoyi, one of the 21 big sharp swords. It seems that it is indeed very hard. The ability of your candle is surprisingly good. As for Galtino's candle power, this was the first time anyone else on the Mary felt the intensity of the candle created. No wonder Luffy wants to invite him. It seems that this man with a strange three-shaped hairstyle can indeed protect the ship very well in the chaos. HMPH, if it wasn't for the strength of Captain Luffy, none of you would be my opponent. For everyone's praise, Galtino turned his face away with some tsunere. Huh. I can't pretend I didn't hear that. Zoro was the first to jump out of Galtino's jeers. He glanced at the ships of the Baroque Society that were about the same distance from him. Zoro also stepped forward and pulled Kazuichi and third-generation Kido from their scabbards. 2 swordsmanship, 72 troubled winds. The 2 knives swung out suddenly, and the resulting slash quickly flew towards the ship of the Baroque Work Club not far away. Swish, the slash hits the nearest ship, then quickly cuts the ship through the middle. Although the ship was not completely split in half, when the slash disappeared, it had already cut most of the ship. The remaining hull, which was still connected, could not bear the hulls that were separated from the two sides, and eventually the whole ship split from the middle and fell to the sides. Flying slash. You have already reached the realm of a swordsman? As a senior agent of the Baroque Work Club, although I have never really met a swordsman, I have naturally heard of swordsmen who can cut flying slashes. And once the swordsman can cut the flying slash, it means that the swordsman can cut through the steel. Galtino also understands what it means to be a swordsman who can cut through steel. Although his candle is comparable to steel after solidification, it is nothing more than that. For a swordsman who can cut steel, it is completely useless. But it doesn't matter now, anyway, since he has already expressed his attitude to join the Straw Hat Pirates, there is no need to think about it. Boom, as Usopp fired another round, the ships were getting too close to firing. Soon, the Mary was in contact with the remaining 6 ships of the Baroque Society. Meanwhile, Zoro, Sanji, and the enlarged chopper jumped to those ships at the same time. And Galtino waved his hands again, and the area of the candle wall expanded again, completely wrapping the Mary except for the back. However, Galtino opened a window in Usopp's position for Usopp to shoot. And Makita on the observation deck also opened her umbrella and jumped from the observation deck. Galtino understood, and layers of candles appeared at Makita's feet. Then, Galtino kept increasing the number of candles, and the candle pillar that supported Makita rose higher and higher. Finally, the limit of the candles that Galtino could create had been reached. At this time, Makita, who was already at a considerable height, suddenly jumped towards a boat with no one on board. Like the Iron King, the ship targeted by Makita exploded under this heavy fall. The 3 ships that were boarded by Zoro, Sanji and Chopper kept screaming. Obviously, these so-called elites are no threat to Zoro at all. Even Chopper, when it gets bigger, is a slap in the face. And with Usopp taking cover aboard the Mary, Chopper had no trouble getting everyone on board into the sea. Watching the battle without any suspense in front of him, Vivi developed confidence in defeating Crocodile for the first time. Although I had seen Luffy shoot before, even Wapol was killed by Luffy with one punch, and Vivi had no idea of Luffy's specific strength. That's why I was really worried all the time. But now, watching Luffy's gang easily kill the 200-strong elite of the Baroque workers with just a few people, Vivi has a new understanding of the people on the Mary. How about it, Vivi? Aren't they great? Seeing Vivi staring at everything in front of him, Nami also understood Vivi's mood at this time. But compared to them, Nami believes that when Vivi sees Luffy's shot, she will know how unnecessary her worries were. They are amazing. Through the hole in front of Usopp, Mariano also looked at the 3 people who were fighting with the enemy outside with a shocked face. Although his abilities are special, he can't play much of a role in this massive chaos. Perhaps, staying here by yourself is also a good choice. The battle was quickly over, and with the combined efforts of Zoro and Sanji, the last ship of the Baroque Works was also sunk. The 2 jumped back to the Mary, and Luffy pulled Makita, who was stepping on the driftwood, up. This time, there was not such a strong wind to take advantage of. Galtino also cancelled the candle wall in due course. At this time, what appeared in the eyes of others on the Mary was a messy sea. The following boats were not seriously damaged because of the battle, but the people above were all thrown into the sea. At this time, hundreds of millions of elderly people who were not on the sea were swimming desperately, trying to climb on the still intact ships. But Luffy wouldn't be so kind enough to leave them a boat, and it would be nice if he didn't kill them himself. Usopp, wait until the Mary is farther away and sink all these ships. Understood, leave it to me. Usopp, who has been praised by everyone, is now in a state of excitement, and naturally agrees with what Luffy said. Are you still worried about our strength? Luffy looked at Vivi and just said something softly. Luffy's worries about Vivi naturally understood, especially after that night was similar to a confession. Vivi's worries about Luffy were more obvious. On the one hand, Alabasta's situation, on the other hand, the safety of Luffy's life, Vivi didn't know how to choose. But now, Luffy deliberately chose to destroy the ship of the 10 billion elders at this time, also to give Vivi a boost. Let her not worry too much and believe in herself. At this time, Vivi, although still not completely relieved, at least a lot better than before. At least those eyes were full of hope at this time. You mean Mr. Point 2 was caught by Mr. 3's gang? In the dark office, Crocodile was listening to Miss.I Sunday, Nicole Robbins' report. Do you know who Mr. Point 3 is partnering with? As far as we know, there's Miss Golden Week, Miss Valentine, Miss Wednesday, and Straw Hat Crew. With a stack of documents in his hand, Robin stood on the side of Crocodile and reported. The identities of Luffy's gang were not concealed, let alone whether Crocodile had other sources of information. If Luffy really wants to defeat Crocodile, intrigue alone won't help. Logia Demon Fruit Power. If you can't suppress the opponent in terms of strength, just relying on the hidden identity surprise attack is useless. Straw Hat Crew. Crocodile tapped the table with his gloomy index finger, as if thinking about something. That face that looked quite vicious, in this gloomy environment, was even more intimidating. Know what their purpose is? At this critical moment when he's getting ready to do it himself, Crocodile is annoyed by the sudden appearance of a potentially disruptive guy. The key is that this possible disruptor is not an ordinary cat or dog. Others may not know it, but Crocodile, also one of the 7 warlords of the sea, does. This man in a straw hat is someone who can fight Hawkeye. It's hard to imagine that such a guy would suddenly appear in the first half of this grand line. It appears to be a deal with Miss on Wednesday, the specifics of which are unclear. It's not that Robin deliberately concealed it, but that the transaction was carried out on the ship of the Straw Hat Pirates. There are no great people in the Baroque society who can sneak on board without being discovered. Really? I know. Continue to pay attention to their movements, and report to me at any time if there is any situation. Crocodile pondered for a while, without further questioning. Alabasta should be all crocodile eyeliner at the moment. Let's find a place to hide the Mary. The port of Alabasta is Nahana, on the Mary, which is about to enter the port, Vivi suggested to Luffy. Crocodile. Isn't that one of the 7 warlords of the sea? What does it matter to him that we log into Alabasta? Except for Luffy's group and Vivi, several other agents of the former Baroque Work Club obviously do not know the true identity of Mr. Zero. Mr. O is Crocodile. It's not that Luffy deliberately concealed it and didn't tell them, but when he was on the boat, no one mentioned about Mr. O, so Luffy naturally wouldn't take the initiative to talk to them about it. Oh, so Mr. O is Crocodile. Gal Tino nodded knowingly, even Von Cry, who was tied up. However, after the two nodded, they were quickly shocked again. What did you say? Mr. O is Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. The two who suddenly reacted and shouted at Luffy with disbelief on their faces. Is there anything strange? Luffy couldn't understand why these people were so excited. Crocodile is also a pirate. What's wrong with the sideline? Isn't it strange? He, one of the 7 warlords of the sea, wants to codify the allied countries of the world government. They knew part of Mr. Zero's plan, which was to capture Alabasta. But now they tell them that their immediate boss, the mastermind of Alabasta, is actually one of the 7 warlords of the sea designated by the world government. This is too weird. There is no limit to human desires. If Luffy said something instructive, he ignored Gal Tino and Von Clay. Then we've all disembarked. What about this shemale bastard? Only Sanji was named Von Clay on the ship, and I always felt that the shemale was more attracted to Sanji's hatred than Zoro. Could it be that Sanji's subconscious already has a hunch about the future? Hey, curly eyebrows, how can you say that to the slave family? Bentham was clearly displeased with Sanji calling him an asshole, and immediately yelled at Sanji. Huh? Do you have any dissatisfaction with you bastard prisoner? Sanji didn't mean to change his name at all, looked at Von Cry who was tied up and said with a ruffian look. Damn curly eyebrows, you wait for the slave family. When the slave family is free, you must be caught in the shemale kingdom for new human transformation. His words. 3. You and Marianu stay and watch him. Marian's ability is matched with your wax fruit, it should not be difficult to trap him. Candles made by Gardino, Von Cray can't necessarily break. And with Marianu's ability to cooperate, as long as there is no helper, it is basically impossible for Bentham to escape. Stay as a watchman? That's fine, and Marianu is not fit to go to war with you. Gal Tino did not reject Luffy's proposal, after all, it was an official captain's order, and he might have refused as soon as he agreed to join. Let's do it like this. According to Vivi, the first thing we have to do is to meet the king and the others to understand the current form. During this time, the Mary and the Bentham will be handed over to you. At the current time, if there is an advance report from Ecolem, the king should be able to take corresponding countermeasures. If their side can agree with the rebels, then maybe Luffy's purpose in this trip is to deal with Crocodile. However, although Ecolem was not discovered by the Baroque workers, the newspapers still reported the confrontation between the rebel army and the king's army. It is also unknown whether Ikalem brought the information, which is why Vivi decided to return to the capital Albana first. But in any case, first go to Albana, the capital of Alabasta, to confirm the situation. No problem, I'll keep an eye on the boat and the people before you come back. I'm fine. The girl, who has always had a very thin sense of existence, for the first time, showed a sense of belonging to the Straw Hat Pirates. Well, let the boat stop there, and the others will join me and get ready to disembark. The Mary ended up at a secluded harbor. Except for Mr. Point 3 and Marianu, and Von Clay, who was tied up, everyone else, including Makita, got off the Mary with Luffy. I don't know if I can meet Ace here. Although Luffy is not the original Luffy, it was brought back by Garp after all, and the relationship between Luffy and Ace is still good. Will the goals of a group of us be too big? Walking on the streets of Nahana, Luffy's group's attire was particularly conspicuous. After all, Alabasta is a desert country, and people here dress very differently from other places. Then let's go buy some clothes to disguise first? The number of people is not the most important thing. As long as you wear the same clothes as the people here, you will basically not attract the attention of people who care. Then let Nami, Vivi and Makita go shopping for clothes. I'm going to the restaurant in front of me. Luffy habitually opened observation hockey after logging into the land. I didn't expect that I would still be able to see Ace here a few days earlier. Why don't you let me buy it? With a certain purpose, Sanji wants to refute Luffy's arrangement. Pay attention to the surrounding situation, there seems to be a lot of Marines in Nahana. Luffy ignored Sanji's questioning. Just after opening observation hockey, Luffy saw Smoker in addition to Ace. Unexpectedly, he still arrived at the Grand Line. Is it to chase after himself? Marine? Generally speaking, doesn't each country have its own army? Few Marines are directly stationed. For this kind of thing, Nami is quite familiar with it. What, is there a Marine? Are we going to get out of here quickly? With Marine, Usopp is still terrified when he talks about it, even now with Chopper as a good partner. But there's nothing wrong with Usopp being scared, after all, it's perfectly normal for pirates to be caught by Marine. Huh. What's wrong with Marine? However, Chopper obviously didn't react. He just joined the Straw Hat Pirates, and he has not yet adapted to the fact that he has become a pirate. Idiot, we are pirates now, of course we will run away when we see Marine. Ah, yeah. Ah, what to do, Luffy, let's run. Usopp's explanation made Chopper react immediately, but it was a little overreacting. And this Marine is something you've all seen, and it's probably just for us. Luffy wanted Zoro and Sanji to experience the battle with Logia's abilities, and Smoker should be the most suitable candidate. Smoke Fruit doesn't do much damage, and even if attacked, Sanji and Zoro's physique won't be that bad. Although Zoro has reached the threshold of armament hockey, he can't use it freely. Maybe by fighting with Logia's ability, he can make him master faster. As for Sanji, with his current physical fitness, armament hockey may not be able to open. Unlike Zoro, he didn't exercise and fight regularly as a cook before going on the Mary. Zoro, on the other hand, exercises whenever he has free time, and as a bounty hunter, battles are commonplace. So after learning about the existence of hockey, it is not difficult for Zoro to want master. If Sanji can experience the powerlessness of fighting against the Logia demon fruit power, maybe he will spend more time practicing. Instead of being full of women all day. The Marine we've seen, is that the smoky guy from Logue Town? Among the Marines that Luffy and others have seen so far, only Smoker, the Logia demon fruit power, is worth remembering. Didn't you think the Logia demon fruit power was like that? You might have a chance to fight him this time. When Zoro and Sanji heard Luffy's words, their eyes lit up. The ones I've dealt with recently are people who don't pose any threat, and it's not a happy fight at all. Hide around here, pay attention to Nami and the others. Although Makita is following, you are not afraid of 10,000, just in case. If it wasn't for telling Ace about Blackbeard's abilities, Luffy wouldn't be going to see Ace right now. Don't worry, Miss Nami and the others, leave the safety to me. As soon as Luffy said to pay attention to the safety of Nami and the others, Sanji completely forgot his dissatisfaction, and assuredly patted his chest with excitement. Luffy, don't worry, we will also protect Nami and the others. So can you stand up straight when you say this? Watching Usopp pat his chest while his legs tremble, Luffy felt speechless. Idiot, don't shake your legs when you say this. Nami, who has been watching a few people discussing, can't help but complain immediately after seeing Usopp's performance. Mr. Usopp is that kind of person. Vivi followed suit. Arriving in Alabasta, Vivi's mood seemed to relax a lot, although the form was still severe, but at least it would not be the same as before, and could only pray secretly. What's the matter with Captain Luffy going to the restaurant? After getting off the boat, Makita, who just followed silently, looked at Luffy and asked a question. Hearing Makita's question, the others also looked at Luffy. Luffy had been arranging what they were going to do before, forgetting that Luffy was not with them. When Makita asked, everyone remembered that Luffy said he wanted to go to the restaurant alone. Although Luffy eats a lot, people don't think he's going to eat. After all, if it is to eat, there is no need to go away with everyone, just go and eat together after buying clothes. Go see someone. Now that he was asked, Luffy didn't care about the answer. After all, it's not something that needs to be kept secret. Huh? Does Luffy have any acquaintances in Alabasta? Luffy's words obviously aroused the interest of several people. Did Luffy know so many secrets because the person he was going to see told him? He's not from Alabasta, he's out at sea 3 years before me, my brother in name, and I just discovered him here through observation haki. Ace's words, I don't know if he has his own reminder, does he have master haki? In the original book, he stayed on the Whitebeard ship for 2 years, and he didn't even learn haki, which is really incredible. For the Logia demon fruit power, armament haki may not be required, but observation haki is quite useful. Through the perception of observation haki, the body is elementalized in advance, and it can even evade attacks containing haki. Luffy's brother? I have never heard Luffy say that he has an older brother, even Nami, he only knows that his grandfather is the marine hero Garp, and nothing else. Speaking of the relationship between the two of them, Luffy didn't even tell himself this. Sure enough, men are big hooves. Nami thought angrily. Facing Nami's questioning eyes, Luffy just smiled faintly, and then asked everyone to act according to the arrangement just now. While Luffy's straw hat is discriminating, obviously not everyone pays attention to Marine's bounty. After all, for civilians, even if you know someone is a pirate, it won't change anything. Luffy just walked down the street like this, and no one in particular was watching him except for occasional glances at him because of his clothes. Luffy quickly arrived at the location of Ace that observation haki sensed. As soon as he entered the restaurant, Luffy saw Ace sitting on the bar, eating, with empty plates in front of him. Wearing a gentleman's hat, with a naked upper body, there is a skull mark on the back, and a crescent moon beard on the skull runs across the middle of the skull. Seeing that the other party was dressed as in the original book, Luffy didn't step forward for the first time. And Ace didn't notice Luffy's existence for the first time, and just kept stuffing food into his mouth. However, when it was stuffed, his hand holding the spoon suddenly stopped, and then was sitting still in front of the bar. Hey, guest, what's the matter with you? The owner of the restaurant asked Ace curiously when he saw Ace's stop, but he didn't get a response. Hey, guest, are you alright? Seeing that Ace didn't respond, the restaurant owner reached out and pushed Ace again, but there was still no response. The restaurant owner staggered back a few steps, his face was full of horror. He. Dead. The boss pointed at Ace, who was sitting motionless, in disbelief, his voice trembling. When the surrounding guests heard the boss's words, they gathered around and pointed at Ace, who was motionless. Well, he didn't eat desert strawberries by mistake, did he? For the people of Alabasta, the desert strawberry is not uncommon, it is a venomous spider that looks like a strawberry. After eating, people will die suddenly within a few days, because the shape is very similar to strawberries, foreign travelers can easily be recruited. Then boss, you are too unlucky, someone died suddenly in the restaurant, which is very unlucky. Although it is not the cause of his own restaurant, but the person in front of him died here, which will definitely have a negative impact on his own restaurant. The restaurant owner wanted to cry for a while, but it was a disaster. Don't worry, he just fell asleep. Luffy walked in from the restaurant door and said to the restaurant owner. Hey, little brother, don't lie. How could anyone suddenly fall asleep while eating? This is right in front of you. Luffy's voice immediately attracted the attention of the restaurant owner and onlookers. But these people obviously don't believe Luffy's words, after all, it's too strange to fall asleep suddenly while eating, isn't it? Since you don't believe me, I'll wake him up. Luffy also thought this kind of thing was interesting, so he decided to let these people learn more. After all, a rare opportunity, it would be even better if you could take a photo. Everyone in the restaurant looked nervously at Luffy, who was approaching slowly. They still didn't believe that the man who suddenly didn't move while eating was asleep. It was the restaurant owner, who looked at Luffy expectantly. If the person really just fell asleep, then the restaurant will not only be unaffected, but there will be more discussion points for the guests to talk about before and after tea. Ignoring the nervousness of the onlookers and the boss, Luffy walked towards Ace step by step. Looking at Luffy, who was getting closer and closer to the man, the onlookers couldn't help swallowing, as if they were waiting for some exciting moment. Under the nervous stares of the guests, Luffy leaned his head over to Ace's ear. "Ah. Old Garp. Why are you here?" Hearing Luffy's voice, the guests still didn't understand what Luffy meant. I saw Ace, who had been motionless, suddenly jumped off the stool, and his eyes suddenly opened. The spoon in his hand was quickly placed in front of his chest, making a parry. "Where is the smelly old man?" "Ah." Seeing Ace, who suddenly came to life, the surrounding guests exclaimed in exclamation, and actually fell asleep. "You're still the same, Ace." Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Luffy also felt a little emotional. At that time, he, Ace, and Sabo had not been beaten by Garp. "Luffy, it's really you." Ace, who woke up, finally saw the person who woke him up in front of him. Then, excitedly, he hugged Luffy's shoulders. "I'm still wondering if you will choose this route after you enter the Grand Line, but I didn't expect to see you here." Luffy also hugged Ace back, signaling long time no see. "Let's finish your meal first, we'll talk later," and your habit of falling asleep suddenly surprised the boss here. Luffy patted Ace on the shoulder and pointed to the stunned guests and boss around him. "I'm really sorry to cause you trouble." Ace, reminded by Luffy, looked around, then bowed to the guests and the boss. You're fine, I didn't expect you to actually just fall asleep." The sobered boss looked at the bowed Ace and waved his hand quickly to indicate that he didn't care. The guests on the side also woke up one after another, exclaimed from time to time, and then returned to their seats. "Boss, settle the bill." Seeing Luffy here, Ace has no idea of continuing to eat. And with Luffy on the side, Ace didn't eat Bawang's meal either. Although he didn't have any money, he still tried to pay to the boss. "Ah. Forget it, forget it, forget it, and forget about the money. I invite the guest to eat this meal. Fortunately, the guest is fine, otherwise the shop doesn't know what will happen." Hearing that Ace was going to check out, the restaurant owner waved his hands again and again. It's great that Ace didn't have an accident in his own restaurant. "I have invited this meal, and I just hope that I will not meet such guests again in the future. Otherwise my heart will not be able to bear such stimulation." How embarrassing that is. Hearing the boss say that this meal is up to him, Ace breathed a sigh of relief, but still bowed to the boss to thank him. "Otherwise, I might embarrass myself in front of Luffy." Looking at Ace's relieved look, Luffy naturally knew why, but he didn't comment too much. Although the two have a good relationship, they each have their own path, and they can't dictate his actions unless Ace joins them. "Otherwise, I don't have this qualification, although it doesn't fit Luffy's style of behavior, but after all, people are close and distant, so it's impossible for Luffy to hit Ace because of this?" "When I read the newspaper before, didn't you already join the Whitebeard Pirates? Why did you come to Alabasta?" Luffy naturally knew the reason, but it was more appropriate to ask this way, otherwise it would be very troublesome to explain. "Ah. I was chasing a trader from a boat. I heard he was in Alabasta, so I came here." "The trader on the Whitebeard ship?" "Yeah. That guy committed a big taboo on the ship. He killed his partner and took away his devil fruit, and as his captain, I naturally have the responsibility to arrest him." For Luffy, Ace did not hide anything, and told the story of Blackbeard killing the captain of the 4th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. Actually killed the crew of the world's strongest man for a devil fruit. It seems that the devil fruit he took is incredible. Luffy followed Ace's words intentionally or unintentionally. It's not normal to tell Ace Blackbeard what his abilities are. Even if that devil fruit is strong, he doesn't need to kill Thatch at all. If he asks Thatch for it, Thatch will definitely give it to him. Ace's mood was a little ups and downs. It seems that staying on the Whitebeard ship for the past 2 years has really given him a strong sense of belonging. "Only that guy, I will never let him go." "Then do you understand what kind of ability he got? If you go to him rashly, you can only suffer." Luffy continued to guide Ace to think about it. "That devil fruit seems to be called dark fruit." Ace thought for a moment and said the answer Luffy wanted to hear. "Because that guy Teach killed Thatch. The mates on the ship were very angry. What kind of fruit is it worth Teach to kill his own family?" When talking about his family, Ace was a little excited, and after a pause, he continued. "For this reason, everyone deliberately turned over the devil fruit illustration book that Dad collected before, but there is no specific information on it except the name. Dark fruit? I seem to have seen the introduction of this fruit somewhere. After Ace finished speaking, Luffy followed his words. This devil fruit is a Logia devil fruit. Logia. If it's just Logia devil fruit has been obtained on the ship before, but he has not expressed what he wants. Before Luffy could finish speaking, Ace interrupted Luffy first. This devil fruit is a bit different. Although it is Logia, it cannot be elementalized. Instead, it will absorb the damage, so I will suffer double the pain. Absorb damage? Hearing Luffy's words, Ace finally considered this ability. If Teach can really absorb the damage it takes, it might be a little troublesome. From what I know of him, although absorbing damage will cause more pain, the Teach guy is particularly tolerant, which doesn't seem to have a big impact on him. If you want to defeat him, the first thing you need to consider is whether Mera Mera Fruit's ability can cause effective damage to him. Seeing Ace bowing his head in contemplation, Luffy didn't continue talking, waiting for him to sort it out first. Is there a cap on the effect of dark fruit's damage absorption? Ace looked up at Luffy and asked. When asked by Ace's words, Luffy didn't know much about Blackbeard's plot in the original comics. I don't know the specifics, but I think it depends on how much pain he can endure, right? If the pain passes out, the ability to think about the fruit cannot be activated. Luffy thought about it and could only guess. Ordinary Logia demon fruit power may be able to be automatically elementalized, but dark fruit's ability should be actively used by the host. But in addition to the ability to absorb damage, dark fruit has another effect, that is, it can make the demon fruit power that is touched cannot activate its abilities. This is the most important point. Originally, Ace might not be able to beat him and could still rely on the ability of Mera Mera Fruit to escape, but once caught, Ace basically has no chance. Is there such a troublesome ability? Originally, Ace was quite sure about catching Blackbeard Teach, but now that he heard Dark Fruit's ability from Luffy's mouth, Ace only felt a bit of trouble. Ace didn't doubt that what Luffy had told him about the Dark Fruit's abilities was true. From what Ace knew about Luffy, Luffy wouldn't deceive himself. In this case, it may be necessary to plan well. Although Luffy has reminded so much, Ace has not given up on finding Blackbeard. In any case, Blackbeard had to take him to Daddy himself. Seeing Ace rubbing his chin and thinking again, Luffy knew that Ace hadn't given up on capturing Blackbeard. But this is normal. If Ace would give up easily, Luffy would just ask him to give up. Why bother explaining Dark Fruit's ability? But this is also the point that I hate Ace, it's too impatient. If Ace has Roger's strength, then stubbornness will also be raised. After all, no one can do anything to you. But with Ace's current strength, this kind of stubbornness could easily kill him. After learning about Dark Fruit's abilities, do you have any countermeasures? Luffy didn't say anything to make him give up the hunt, but wanted to see if he was ready to deal with it. Can I beat him if I only use ranged attacks? After listening to Ace's words, Luffy shook his head. Dark Fruit has the ability to attract, and will be caught if you are not careful. If you want to defeat Blackbeard with long-range attacks, unless Enel's Thunder Fruit is matched with his Heartnet, that is, the super-wide observation Haki, it is basically impossible. Or do not rely on Devil Fruit, just rely on to defeat him. But Ace doesn't account for both, and Blackbeard also has a partner robbery. Although they may not have Master Haki at the moment, but if they just get in the way of Ace, they should still be able to do it. To be honest, Ace, it's impossible for you to capture Blackbeard alone. It's a bit harsh to say, but it's not Luffy talking nonsense. In addition to the Dark Fruit ability that Blackbeard just acquired, how could he have no other ability to survive on the Whitebeard ship before? Hey, I haven't seen you for a while, and you're still so rude. For Luffy's outspokenness, Ace didn't show anger or dissatisfaction, just slapped Luffy's chest indifferently. But I won't give up on catching him. Ace naturally understood that Luffy wanted to give up by saying this, but he couldn't let go of the betrayer who killed his family. Hey, is there a fight over there? Just as Luffy and Ace were walking slowly, two people hurried past, discussing something while walking. And there were constantly people rushing in the direction the two pointed, obviously something happened there. Looks like the small talk can only go so far, and my buddies seem to be in trouble. Luffy unfolded observation Haki as soon as he heard the two passers-by speak. It was none other than Zoro, Sanji, and Smoker who chased after him to Alabasta. As for why he is chasing himself, Luffy can only say that this is fate. Oh? People who can be recognized as your partners must be very good people, right? Ace, who was still thinking about how to deal with Blackbeard, heard Luffy speak, and temporarily let go of his fear of Blackbeard. He turned to look at Luffy with interest, as if he wanted to meet those people whom Luffy called his partners. It's really a nice group of people. How about you? Do you want to leave Whitebeard's place and come to my boat? Luffy also joked, and then the two ran towards the direction where the crowd gathered. Huh. Didn't you come to my boat? Father Whitebeard is the strongest man in the world, and your companions will be very safe there. Asarin, responding to Luffy's jokes. Then forget it. I have an inspirational existence on my ship to be the world's #1 swordsman, but I can't hide behind the strongest in another world. Besides, Luffy wants to travel around the world well, only his own boat, sitting is the most comfortable. The world's #1 swordsman, that's really a great ambition. Ace was not surprised by Luffy's rejection. Everyone knew each other very well, so it was just a joke. But it seems that your two partners have absolutely nothing to do with the Logia demon fruit power. With the speed of the two, they naturally quickly reached the location of the incident. Zoro and Sanji were now staring at Smoker with embarrassed expressions on their faces. In the crowd not far away, Nami, Vivi, Chopper and Usopp looked at the two of them worriedly. Obviously the previous battle was not optimistic. Please leave here immediately. Our marine is catching pirates. In order to avoid accidental injury, please do not stay any longer. The bespectacled female marine, Tashigi, was leading a group of marine soldiers, trying to evacuate the crowd. But it doesn't seem to have much effect. After all, they are not soldiers or marines of their own country. These civilians don't care at all. After all, they have just entered the Grand Line and have not had time to go to Master Hockey. This time, I just want them to experience the abilities of Logia Devil Fruit for themselves. Luffy has no plans to shoot directly. The two have not reached the limit yet, and if Smoker pushes him a little more, Zoro's armament Hockey might be able to master it completely. You captain is really strict, but it should be the same, otherwise the future voyage will be difficult for them. Ace is talking about them. Although Ace is not clear about Luffy's current strength, it is certain that at least he will not lose to himself. This is also because of the fact that I ate Mera Mera fruit now. Before, I never beat Luffy once. Pirate Hunter Roronoa Zoro, Sanji, the chef of the former sea restaurant Balati, since you are here, the guy in the straw hat must be here somewhere. Looking at the panting two people in front of him, Smoker's face was calm, but his eyes fluctuated when he mentioned the straw hat. If you want to find our captain, you must defeat us first, right? Now we are still standing in front of you, Zoro said to Sanji one by one, although the discerning person knew at a glance that the two were approaching the limit, but the two still had no intention of retreating. Hey, Chlorella, what happened to your hockey master? I really didn't expect that the guy who was easily dealt with by Luffy would actually embarrass the two of us. It's almost, I always feel that there is still not enough. Zoro gritted his teeth, the current situation is really bad. He, who thought he could cut iron, might soon be able to force Hawkeye to pull out his black knife. But he didn't think that any Colonel Marine would be able to make himself helpless now. Zoro's hand holding the two knives exerted a little force, and his teeth clenched the words of Hedao in his mouth unconsciously. There is a force in the body that seems to be condensing, but he has never been able to speed up its formation. If that's the case, then catch you all. The guy in the straw hat will definitely come to save you. Smoker didn't continue talking nonsense. His hands turned into smoke, and two fists turned into smoke flew out quickly. The smoke from the fist and wrist suddenly stretched, and under the pulling of the fist, it quickly wrapped Zoro and Sanji around. Zoro and Sanji wanted to dodge, but the two who had used up too much energy before, finally moved a beat slower. It was directly caught by Smoker's extended smoke arm. Zoro's hands Yuki and third-generation Katoru also fell to the ground because their arms were tied. Damn it, get me out. The bound Zoro clenched his teeth tightly and said the words, and the veins on his forehead burst. A faint layer of breath wrapped around Zoro's hands. Then, in Smoker's surprised eyes, the smoke fist that wrapped Zoro was directly caught in Zoro's hand. Zoro's men clenched tightly, and the pained Smoker unwittingly let go of the white smoke entangling Zoro. Zoro took the opportunity to break free of the smoke, and while he could still feel the breath in his hands, he quickly rushed toward Sanji, directly grabbing Sanji's other fist. Seeing Zoro break free, Sanji didn't have time to breathe a sigh of relief when he saw Smoker shoot that fist again at the back of Zoro's head, who was rushing towards him. Watch out for the back, green algae head. However, it was too late for Zoro, who wanted to dodge, and Smoker's white smoke fist was already close at hand. Zoro, Usopp and others in the crowd could not help but exclaim. If this punch hits the head directly, Zoro will be finished. Snapped, the sound of fists and palms intersected, and under the gaze of all the civilians and Marines on the scene, a figure wearing a straw hat appeared behind Zoro. Smoker's white smoke fist was firmly grasped by the suddenly appearing figure. I don't understand very well. There are so many pirates in this sea. Why do you have to hold us back? You really are here. Withdrawing the hand that wrapped around Sanji, he also freed the other fist from Luffy's unclenched hand. Smoker didn't answer Luffy's question, just stared at Luffy closely. This is the elementalization of Logia demon fruit power. How does it feel? Luffy didn't continue to look at Smoker, but turned his attention to Zoro and Sanji, who were rather embarrassed. Luffy. Seeing Luffy, who suddenly appeared to block Smoker's attack, Nami and the others also emerged from the crowd. Originally, I wanted them to buy clothes to disguise them, but this time, they all came out. But it doesn't matter. With Vivi, the princess of Alabasta, there, you can negotiate with them to prevent bad things from jumping out at the critical moment. It's worse than I imagined. I didn't expect the Logia demon fruit power to be so difficult to deal with. Is it really impossible to face them without haki? The ugly face of Sanji being supported by Usopp was not the reason for being injured by Smoker. But when I fought with Smoker before, the feeling that I had attacked myself, but couldn't hit the opponent at all, was really uncomfortable and wanted to vomit blood. It is not that there are no other methods. Seawater and Seastone are the most restrained demon fruit power, but I do not recommend this method. After all, only one's own strength can survive in this sea. The Straw Hat Pirates, what is your purpose in coming to Alabasta? Seeing the others rushing out of the crowd, Smoker frowned. Although Monkey D. Luffy's bounty amounted to 90 million Baileys, none of his crew was a bounty offender. Cut. Disgusting senior officials. Smoker didn't know why he cared so much about the Straw Hat Pirates. Maybe because they didn't volunteer to be pirates, or maybe because they were pirates who escaped from their own hands. There are many reasons, but Smoker doesn't know which one is the real reason. Purpose. Rather, what is the purpose of your marine and world government? Luffy also responded to Smoker's question. What do you mean by that? Luffy's words made Smoker a little unresponsive. What did marine and the world government want to do? Wait, that girl is Princess Vivi, as the Princess of Alabasta. Why are you with the Straw Hat Pirates? Things seem to be getting in trouble. Smoker took a hard puff from the cigar he had bitten in his mouth, his brows furrowed into mountains. The princess of the world government allied country and the new Straw Hat Pirates got mixed up again, which made Smoker as Marine feel uncomfortable. You are the colonel of naval headquarters. The people around have been dismissed by Marine, and here are Luffy's gang and Smoker's gang. Ace's words have been hiding in the alley next to him and never come out. This is Luffy's business, and Ace will not interfere. Unless Luffy asks for help, or the other party may endanger Luffy's life, it is disrespect to Luffy to intervene casually. Vivi, who was recognized by Smoker, did not continue to hide, but stood up directly. Luffy didn't stop Vivi's actions. As a princess of a country, she needs to have her own rules of conduct. That's right, I'm Colonel Naval Headquarters Smoker, and I wonder if Princess Vivi can answer my question. Smoker shifted his gaze from Luffy to Vivi. Obviously, compared to Straw Hat Luffy, the matter of the princess of the world government is more important to Marine. What do you Marines have to say about the 7 warlords of the Sea Crocodile plotting to take Alabasta? Now that Marine is here, it is better to let Marine intervene in this matter. Perhaps doing so will have unexpected results. Vivi pondered for a while, and then spoke out about Crocodile. In any case, Alabasta, as a member of the world government, Marine is obliged to protect the country from encroachment with the permission of its leaders. Tisk. I know that nothing to do with the country is good. Smoker was speechless at the name that came out of Vivi's mouth. Although I don't know the specific situation, but it was told by the Princess of Alabasta that it is probably true. Smoker regretted calling Vivi's name, obviously pretending he didn't know him, so he wouldn't have any trouble. Colonel Smoker, what are we going to do? Although he is usually a little confused, Tashigi knows what he should know. She also realized at this time that things seemed to be deviating in some unknowable direction. Luckily, you don't have to think for yourself, just leave the problem to Colonel Smoker. I will investigate this matter, but please leave Straw Hat crew immediately. As Princess Alabasta, you should not mix with pirates. For this kind of thing, Smoker's temper naturally won't let it go. But when it comes to getting involved directly, Smoker isn't stupid, so leave this kind of thing to the old guy above for a headache. But before that, I have to find the evidence first, otherwise I will only be scolded for nothing. Although I am not afraid, it is somewhat difficult for my face. Let's wait until you guys deal with Crocodile and tell me that Straw Hat crew is a pirate. Vivi didn't listen to Smoker and leave Luffy. While Luffy's crew were indeed pirates, Vivi enjoyed her time aboard the Mary. Luffy, they haven't done a single thing that hurt innocent people. If you are not a princess, you can go around the world with Luffy desperately. It's not the first time Vivi has thought this way. Cut. What a hassle. Straw Hat Luffy, I'll spare you this time. Tashigi, let's go. Although he may not be Luffy's opponent in a real fight, as Marine, he can't be overpowered by pirates. Yes, Colonel Smoker. Tashigi and the surrounding Marines answered at the same time, and left with Smoker. Luffy looked at Smoker in the distance, speechless, although he knew that he was indeed such a person. But isn't it bad that you completely ignore my presence in front of my face? Fortunately, Luffy didn't have any hatred in his heart. Otherwise, if someone else replaced him, he might just wipe out this group of Marines. Chopper, bandage the two of them. Although the injury is not serious, it will still have some impact. Understood. I'll wrap them up now. Listening to Chopper's slightly deformed voice, Luffy noticed that there were 2 cloth strips stuck in Chopper's nose. Shouldn't he be able to stand the fragrance of this port city? But does the reindeer stuffer work? As expected of you, Luffy, even the Princess of Alabasta can be invited aboard. After Smoker left with all the Marines, Ace came out of the side alley. Who? The first to react was Makita, who had not spoken. Now Zoro and Sanji are both injured. Chopper is bandaging them, except for Luffy. Makita is still a bit of a fight. As for Usopp, as he is now, he will die if he is approached by the enemy. Take it easy, Makita, it's not the enemy. Luffy did not refute Ace's ridicule. Judging from the current situation, although Vivi will not be on board because of Alabasta, everyone basically recognizes her as a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. You guys are so nice, Luffy. Ace saw Zoro and Sanji's performance, May 7-7, and the expressions of Nami and others rushing out. Before I got on the Whitebeard, I sailed with a group of like-minded partners. Right. Luffy replied that although everyone has not experienced much together yet, they have gotten along very well with each other. Who is this? It was Nami who spoke first. After all, it was obvious that Luffy knew the man who just appeared, so he should be the brother Luffy said before, right? Nami took a closer look. Well, a little familiar, but nothing like Luffy. Hello. My name is Ace. I'm Luffy's brother. Nice to meet you. Although I wanted to say thank you for taking care of Luffy, but thinking of Luffy who has been taking care of herself and Sabo, Ace felt that she did not have the position to say that. Ah. So you were the brother Luffy said. After hearing Ace's self-introduction, Usopp realized that he had not thought about it at all before. Zoro and Sanji, who were being wrapped by Chopper, remained calm throughout. They didn't feel any malice from Ace, and, if it was an enemy, Luffy wouldn't let him come. Ace, you must have heard of it, right? You are not the kind of people who don't read newspapers. In that case, I did see this face in the newspapers. Nami felt a little familiar just now, and now hearing Luffy say this, he kind of remembered the newspaper he read 2 years ago. Portgas D. Ace, the super rookie 3 years ago, turned down the invitation to become the 7 warlords of the sea, the man who ended up joining the Whitebeard Pirates. After all, it was a newspaper from a few years ago, so it's normal to not remember it for a while. The Whitebeard Pirates? Is that the Whitebeard I know? Although Usopp hadn't seen Ace's report, there was no one on the sea who didn't know about Whitebeard's name. Looks like an amazing man. Zoro, who had been wrapped up by Chopper, had an interested expression on his face. But there is no plan to do it. After all, Zoro does not have such a strong desire to do it for people other than swordsmen. Sanji on the side did not speak, but his eyes were just as eager. The battle with Smoker just now made his desperate hope stronger. By the way, Ace is currently the captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, but his strength should be the last among the captains. Luffy doesn't mean to give Ace face at all, after all, he is his own. Cough. The last sentence is superfluous, but after 3 years of absence, you precocious brat has learned to complain? Ace couldn't refute what Luffy said, and could only helplessly roll his eyes at Luffy. Oh, how amazing, it only took 3 years to become a squad leader on that Whitebeard ship. Luffy's words didn't take away Usopp's shock, after all, Whitebeard was a little too far away for him. So Luffy's brother is such an amazing person? Chopper, who had wrapped Zoro and Sanji, went back to Usopp, looking at Ace with deep curiosity in his eyes. Stare. What? What's wrong? When Chopper looked at Ace, Ace also looked at Chopper. One person and one deer looked at each other like this, but Chopper couldn't help but lose first. There was a little fear on the cute deer's face, and Jenin couldn't help but take 2 steps back under Ace's gaze. Alas, is this civet cat a fur tribe? It can talk. In the past 3 years of voyage, Ace has naturally seen many novel things, and naturally knows the existence of the fur tribe. Bastard, I'm not a civet cat, I'm a reindeer, and what is a fur tribe? Chopper, who was once again mistaken for a tanuki, immediately yelled angrily, but still noticed what Ace said about the fur tribe. His name is Chopper, and he's a reindeer that eats human fruit, not a fur tribe. Looking at Chopper jumping again, Luffy couldn't help but chuckle and explained to Ace. Oh, it turns out to be a reindeer, I'm really sorry. With that said, Ace bowed to Chopper apologetically and continued. Furs are a human form derived from hairy animals that can speak and act like humans, but they don't eat hairy creatures. Well, is this the country Luffy was talking about? Hearing Ace's explanation, Chopper remembered the kingdom of talking animals that Luffy had said earlier. Oh? Luffy, do you know Zo? Hearing Chopper say this, Ace immediately looked at Luffy in surprise. In Ace's impression, Luffy, like himself, had never been out of East Blue. Maybe other countries can read it from the newspapers, but it is impossible for ordinary people to know the words of Zo. Compared to Ace's shock, Nami and others are used to it. I do know, but now is not the time to talk about it. We have been here for long enough. If we don't leave, we will be watched as monkeys. Only then did everyone react, and the people who had just been dispersed were looking at themselves and others from a distance. It's just because Smoker said that Luffy and the others were pirates, and now there is no marine around, so these people don't dare to come forward and watch. If that's the case, then it's almost time for me to leave. Ace is satisfied to be able to meet Luffy here. Next, it's time to continue. Teach, you wait for me, I will definitely take you back to the boat and let Daddy judge your life. Are you still going after that person? Seeing Ace's expression, Luffy knew what Ace was going to do next. You know mine. I can't let go of that traitor who dared to kill his family. Is Ace just gone? Watching Ace go away, Usopp couldn't help asking. Well, he has his business to do. Luffy replied, but he was thinking. It's obviously impossible to stop Ace here, so is it possible to stop Blackbeard before going to Sky Island? With his current strength, can he fight against Blackbeard who has not yet acquired the ability of Shock Fruit? Dark Fruit's ability is too restrained for Demon Fruit power, and he is relying too much on Rubber Fruit's boost at this stage, which is difficult. If only I could learn Conqueror's Haki before that. However, in the first half of the Grand Line, no one has this ability, which is rare even among Conqueror's Haki owners. Emission, Luffy, what's the matter? Nami asked, noticing that Luffy seemed to be thinking. The enemy that Ace is dealing with this time is a bit troublesome, maybe Ace will be caught by the other side. Ace will be caught. The captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates can't beat them, so how powerful should Ace be against people? Then why don't you persuade him to give up? If you know you can't beat it, but you still have to fight, what is this? Where have you seen this kind of behavior? Nami glanced at Luffy and Zoro beside him, and suddenly realized that these two guys are not like this. Feeling that there was something wrong with Nami looking at him, Luffy instantly understood what Nami meant. But there is no way, taking advantage of the relationship between Hawkeye and Red Hair, he can reduce the danger to a minimum. If you really try to break through in order to fight Kaido later, then your voyage will definitely be dangerous due to the lack of strength. Ace's character is like this, once he decides, no one can change it. Isn't that why Ace died in the original book? Stubbornly wanted to take action against Akainu who insulted Whitebeard, but he ignored that it was the hard work of his comrades that resulted in countless deaths and injuries to save him. Are you like that too? Nami stared at Luffy closely, as if trying to see the answer on Luffy's face. Is it the same for me? Luffy thought about it and rejected the answer. At least as the self who came from transmigration, he still cherishes his life. Also, don't you take yourself too seriously, Nami? However, Luffy didn't say these words. There are some things that you need to figure out. It's time for us to go. How are your clothes? Being stared at by Nami was unbearable, so Luffy had to change the subject. The clothes have been bought, let's find a hotel to change them. Seeing that there was something wrong with the atmosphere, Vivi took over the topic of Luffy. Nami took a deep look at Luffy and didn't ask any further questions. Luffy of damn it, making Miss Nami unhappy again. Sanji, who was supported by Usopp, looked at Luffy with fire-breathing eyes. Whether it was anger or jealousy, it is unknown. But Luffy thinks it's more likely to be jealousy. Several people walked towards a hotel with the fearful eyes of pedestrians. When he came out again, everything had changed. Well, except Luffy. If you are weak, you need to change your clothes and disguise, so you can honestly wear this outfit. That being said, in fact, Luffy has already opened observation haki. In this Alabasta, no one's observation haki can cover Luffy's haki. Once he found out that someone was spying on his party, Luffy could find out immediately. Although they were a little unhappy with Luffy's words, Zoro and Sanji did not refute them. After all, Luffy was right. If you are strong enough to kill all the people who are watching, naturally you don't need to disguise. But Luffy didn't say that he turned on observation haki. After all, Nami and Vivi's clothes are still pretty good looking, and even Makita's clothes are not bad. If Luffy said he was on observation haki, the girls might not change into this exotic dancer costume. However, when Luffy found out that they were wearing this dress, he let them wear a white robe outside. Looking at Nami with his hair up, Luffy couldn't help but glance at him. After all, Nami usually wears her hair, which is rare. And Vivi is still the previous hairstyle, combing her hair into a bundle, half draped behind her back. Makita is much simpler, after all, she has short hair, so there is no need to tie it up. As for Zoro, let's not talk about them. So shall we go straight to Alabasta? Now that he has finished changing his clothes, there is no need to stay in this port, but only Vivi knows how to get to Alabasta. If you go directly to Alabasta from Nahana, you need to go through a whole desert. It is best to have enough drinking water. It is even better if you have a camel to travel. If it was on foot, Vivi felt that his group might not be able to walk. In that case, look for a place where camels are rented or sold. Since Vivi, a local, said so, Luffy naturally made the decision immediately. Try to save your energy when you can, and don't drop the chain at the critical moment. One more question. Now that we are in Nahana, should the rebels be closer to us? Don't you need to go to the location of the rebels first to confirm? It stands to reason that Ikalem should have informed the King of Crocodile's conspiracy, but now it is still a situation where the rebels and the King's army confront each other. Is there something in there that Luffy and the others didn't expect? As Katria? Vivi lowered her head and pondered for a while. The current situation is indeed a bit abnormal. It is impossible for Ikalem to betray, but now it seems that no news has reached the king. Or was Ikalem caught up by the Baroque Workers? Thinking of this, Vivi couldn't help but be a little worried, and the current situation really has to make people think more. Then let's go to Katria first, maybe we can learn about the situation faster there. After all, the rebel army and the king's army are hostile, and there may be news of Alabasta on their side. Luffy nodded. From the map, Nahana was not far from Katria. However, for the convenience of movement, camels are still very necessary. Under the leadership of Vivi, several people quickly found a place where they could rent camels. 7 people and 7 camels, Chopper doesn't need it, and little Chopper can ride with Usopp. In this way, Luffy, 7 people and 1 reindeer, rode 7 camels, and under the guidance of Vivi, started to set out for Katria, the gathering place of the Alabasta rebel army. This is Katria. It feels like Nahana. Luffy and his group from Nahana arrived in Katria in half a day with camels. To Usopp's disappointment though, here in Nahana don't look much different. After all, Alabasta is the kingdom of the desert. In this desert territory, it seems a bit difficult to derive other styles. Vivi looked at Usopp speechlessly. The same country, the 2 cities are still very close, how much difference can there be? Do I need to go directly to the leader of the rebel army? I can find his location directly. In Alabasta, all Luffy has to do is to clear the way for Vivi. As for decision making, everything about Alabasta is up to Vivi to decide. After all, it takes money to do things. Although he and Vivi are basically in a certain state of relationship, the one who saves himself is Alabasta. Even if you don't get Vivi's, the king's side is indispensable. Well, go directly to Kosha, speaking of which, that rebel leader is also my childhood playmate. Vivi glanced at Luffy cautiously, and seeing that he didn't respond, Vivi breathed a sigh of relief before continuing. If I could see him directly, maybe a lot of things could be explained clearly. Luffy nodded, although he didn't know what the war between the army and the army was like, but if it could cut off the signs of war, it must be effective. Unless the reason for the opponent to send troops is not the reason on the surface. Turning the observation haki, which reduced its power after entering the desert, to maximum, Luffy quickly found where the army was gathering. And there is a person surrounded by a speech. It should be him. Luffy looked back at Vivi and said. I found it, come with me. Vivi nodded, then followed Luffy, who was walking ahead, and the others followed. Camels can be directly rode into the city, so everyone did not intend to get off the camels. Fortunately, there are camels to ride, otherwise Chopper might dehydrate and die. This fur, which is extra warm in winter, killed Chopper in the desert kingdom of Alabasta. Soon, at the signal of Luffy, everyone stopped at a large rock in a clearing. In front is the camp of the rebel army. There is no need to ride a camel into it. Also, if you negotiate, you don't need everyone to go in. It's enough to accompany Vivi in. By yourself, even if the other party wants to catch Vivi, if he is there, he will not be able to succeed. Just let me and Vivi go in to negotiate, you guys just wait here, there are too many people, if the negotiation fails, it will not be easy to come out. After all, there were at least 1 million soldiers around, and even if Luffy opened Conqueror's Haki, it wouldn't necessarily be able to stun them all in such a large area. Then be careful. No one objected. After all, what Luffy said was the truth. The words of the two, with Luffy's strength, would not be a problem for them to escape. Luffy and Vivi came out from behind the boulder, still some distance away from the rebel camp, and this distance could only be passed on foot. Soon, Luffy and Vivi were spotted near the camp. A group of soldiers then emerged from the camp and surrounded Luffy and Vivi. I am the princess of Alabasta, Neferutari Vivi, who has come to negotiate with your leader. Surrounded by Vivi, he was not afraid. With Luffy by his side, he would always feel at ease unconsciously. Vivi's self-reported home name caused a commotion among the soldiers who surrounded the two, and soon soldiers came forward. You are finally here, Princess Vivi, the chief has been waiting here for a long time. The soldier who walked in front of the two saluted Vivi, and then waved to the soldier behind him. Luffy and Vivi glanced at each other, not quite understanding what these people were doing. But since the other party said so, let's take a look first. Luffy's observation Haki did not perceive the ambush. Under the guidance of the soldiers, the two walked into a tent from the road that the soldiers gave way. Princess Vivi, I didn't expect us to meet again, but in this capacity. As soon as he entered the tent, the young man sitting in the main seat glanced at Vivi and spoke. Apparently confirmed the identity of Vivi, and recognized it at a glance. Leader Kosha. Let's keep it short. The main purpose of Vivi's visit this time was to confirm the situation in Albana, not to catch up with the other party. Hearing Vivi's flat tone, the man named Kosha was stunned for a moment, and then he smiled bitterly. Unexpectedly, the little girl who always followed behind her back then is now like a stranger. But now is not the time to sigh, because Alabasta's fate is at stake, and Kosha must hurry up. This must be the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates, Monkey D. Luffy, right? No longer struggling with those unrealistic thoughts, Kosha looked at Luffy, who was standing next to Vivi. Even I know? It seems that the king has passed his temper with you. From this perspective, the confrontation between the king's army and the rebel army may be intriguing. After Ikalem returned to Alabasta, he has reported everything to His Majesty. Kosha slowly told the whole story. It turned out that after Ikalem returned to Albana, he reported the crocodile matter to King Cobra as soon as possible. After King Cobra learned about it, he secretly sent someone to contact Kosha, the leader of the rebel army, who was the chin in front of him. Although Kosha was the leader of the rebel army, he did not send troops because he wanted to rebel. As for why the king's army would attack ordinary people, it should be Crocodile's handwriting. And Kosa, who learned the real situation from the king, immediately consulted with King Cobra. The result of the deliberations was to confuse Crocodile by creating the illusion of a confrontation between the rebel army and the king's army, making him feel that things were going according to his plan. That way Alabasta will have plenty of time for Vivi to bring Luffy over. In the final analysis, it is because there is no way to solve the existence of Crocodile in Alabasta. Otherwise, there is no need to put all hope on Luffy, the pirate. After all, pirates are pirates after all, and no one can guarantee whether Luffy will become the next Crocodile. But both Cobra and Kosha chose to believe in Vivi, and they believed that the person Vivi brought back was someone they could trust. So we don't have to go to Albana. Luffy and Vivi, who left the rebel camp, after meeting with Zoro, briefly told them the information they got from Kosha. Well, after that, we just need to go straight to the rain and deal with Crocodile. After knowing the cause and effect of the matter, Vivi relaxed a little bit. Things are on the bright side, and Ikalem is fine. Then, as long as Luffy solves Crocodile, the crisis in Alabasta is basically lifted. Great, Vivi. While it's too early to tell, the mastermind of the Alabasta crisis has yet to be resolved. But the Kingdom Rebellion issue has been clarified, which is indeed a good thing for Vivi. Then we have to go back to Nahana. The rain is on the other side of the sea, and we need to go by boat. Vivi was able to breathe a sigh of relief, but his mind did not relax. Princess Vivi is so beautiful when she's relaxed. Sanji, who was still wearing color, saw Vivi's relaxed expression, and his body couldn't help twisting again. Color cook. Zoro doesn't miss any chance to taunt Sanji. Nympho cook. Makita's face was a little dark, and her previous self was actually frightened by such a person. Miss Makita is so beautiful. Sanji, who didn't care that he was being scolded at all, looked at Makita with the same gesture. But soon, Sanji's injury was not yet healed, and Sanji twisted his waist smoothly. Click. What? Maybe this is the so-called joy and sorrow. Ah, Sanji, don't move, doctor, the doctor is coming. Chopper on the side saw Sanji like this, and immediately panicked, calling for the doctor in a hurry. You are a doctor yourself. Usopp yelled at Chopper. What happened to his little brother? How could he feel less reliable than himself? Okay. Don't make trouble, let's go, and get rid of Crocodile as soon as possible, so as not to have too many dreams at night. It will change after a while, and if something messy happens again, it will be troublesome at that time. After listening to Luffy's words, everyone stopped arguing. Sanji, who was injured again, was still supported by Usopp, and the group went back to the way they came. It was another half-day journey, and the speed slowed down a lot due to the number of wounded. It was early morning when we left, and it was completely dark when we came back. At night, the weather in the desert is not hot, but cold. Chopper, who was weak along the way, felt alive again. The group did not stay in Nahana, but returned directly to the Mary. Although the Mary is small, even the sleeping deck feels more secure than sleeping in an unfamiliar city. When Luffy and the others came back, Von Kree, who was tied up with green patterns on his clothes, leaned on the steps and fell asleep without any image. Gal Tino was resting by sitting on the main mast, but looking at his sleeping appearance, it was obvious that even if Von Kree escaped, he would not know. So it's not unreasonable that Crocodile paired him with Marianu in the first place. As for Marianu, probably fell asleep in Nami's room. After all, I've been living in Nami's room before, and now that I haven't seen anyone, I think I've rested. Since they were all asleep, Luffy and the others also went back to their cabins to rest. Nami, Vivi and Makita naturally went back to Nami's room to sleep. As for men like Zoro, they could just find a place to sleep under the Mary's cabin, even on the deck. But Luffy didn't sleep with them, but sat on the Mary's sheep's head, thinking about the next voyage again. The Alabasta thing is almost over, and then comes the journey to Sky Island. Enel, Thunder Fruit, with Enel's character, is not suitable for this ship. Then, there is no need to keep your hands. If you can get Thunder Fruit, who is suitable to eat this Thunder Fruit? It's a bit premature to think about this without Lion Fruit, but what if, like Munch Munch Fruit, Thunder Fruit respawns nearby? Usopp? Usopp's sniping ability and observation hockey's talent may be suitable for long-range strikes. But in this way, Thunder Fruit's physical augmentation was completely wasted. For Nami, he already has Lion Fruit, which is the most suitable ability other than Yun Yun Fruit. Unless Lion Fruit respawns somewhere Luffy can't catch up, it's basically a no-brainer. Sanji? Under the premise of having transparent fruits, he is not interested in other devil fruits at all. Of course, even with the transparent fruit, Luffy would rather give it to Usopp than to Sanji. If only I could eat the second fruit myself. I don't know whether Blackbeard can accommodate the second devil fruit because of the dark fruit, or because of his own special reasons. WT is too slow. If he could wrap himself around Master Conqueror's hockey, he might be able to catch Blackbeard. At that time, there will be a way to conduct a comprehensive inspection of him, and perhaps find a way for the two fruits to coexist. After leaving Sky Island, it was time to switch to a bigger ship. The Mary was obviously a little too small. Some of the people who live now need to sleep on the deck. When there are more crew members, the Mary will not be enough. The problem of the ship is easy to solve, and the gold of Sky Island is enough for Luffy and others to change to a big ship that suits their hearts. And there is the existence of Munch Munch Fruit, and there is no such thing as giving up the Mary. The main issue is the strength of the crowd. Before Sabodi Archipelago, this route was not as long as expected. Before 2 years of cultivation, is there any other way to increase the strength of a wave of people? Judging from the current situation, because of his own reasons, Nami's combat power is not as good as the original. Even Usopp and Sanji didn't get enough battles like the original. Only Zoro, because of Hawkeye and his years of training, has improved a lot compared to the original with his own advice. Maybe get Sanji's battle suit before 2 years of training? As for Usopp, we can only see if there is a suitable devil fruit. Another point is, since Chopper can research something like the blue wave ball, can it research other things that can enhance its strength? There are so many strange animals and plants in the pirate world, with the help of Crocus's medical notes, plus the medical knowledge that Chopper learned from Dr. Dory. Maybe some special drugs can be developed. Because the target was aimed directly at the rain, in order to avoid attracting attention, Luffy and his party chose to sail from the sea. Walking on land requires not only camouflage, but also keeping someone to guard the Mary. It is better to take the Mary together from the Santo River. Not only does it save time compared to walking on land, but the key is that it is not easy to be found at sea. After 2 days of sailing, the Mary arrived at the City of Dreams where Crocodile is located, Rainland. The next thing is simple, find someone to ask the location of the casino in the rain. Then Luffy uses observation haki to confirm the Crocodile's location, and finally just break in directly. Luffy, Vivi, Zoro, and Sanji got off the Mary this time, while the others stayed on the Mary. Under the perception of Luffy observation haki, except for Crocodile, the members of the Baroque working group here are all the senior agents who appeared in Alabasta in the original. It seems that Cobra and Kosh's plan was successful, and Crocodile didn't see anything wrong. Otherwise, these people may have gone to Alabasta in advance. However, this is just right, and the entire Baroque Work Club can be wiped out. With Zoro's current strength, there is absolutely no problem in dealing with Crocodile's Mr. One combination. As for the other pair in the original book, there would be no problem with Sanji's strength. So, the 4 of them went directly to the casino where Crocodile was. To prevent trouble, Luffy came in and turned on Conqueror's haki for an indiscriminate coercion. Under Luffy's increasing momentum, the entire casino, both the guests and the security guards, fainted without any resistance. How is this going? Vivi, who saw the shocking scene of Conqueror's haki for the first time, was speechless when he watched the casino collapsed. Sure enough, no matter how many times you watch it, it's still a shocking picture. Although it was not the first time that Zoro and Sanji met, they were still shocked. Okay, the soldiers have all left the stage, and the next is today's master. Luffy pressed the brim of the straw hat with his hand, and looked at the hallway of the casino hall with a dull gaze. Under the perception of his observation haki, several people were about to come out of there. Vivi looked at Luffy like this, her heart trembled slightly. This was the first time she saw Luffy so haki. Although the previous Luffy was just as strong, he felt more indifferent and confident. With Luffy now, Vivi has a feeling that no one can beat him. Just as Vivi was watching Luffy, someone finally came out of the hallway. Meanwhile, Zoro and Sanji also pose for a fight. Straw Hat Luffy, suddenly visiting my casino and messing up my casino again, doesn't seem to make sense. The man walking in front was wearing a fur coat with a plaid suit under it, with a big back and a cigar in his mouth. A line scar runs across the bridge of the nose, and a gold hook is worn on the left glove, giving a very vicious feeling. Crocodile glanced at the guests and security guards lying about in the casino, and looked at Luffy and the others with fierce eyes. Although they were knocked on the door, they didn't attack Luffy for the first time. Crocodile. He was answered by a roar from Vivi. When Crocodile came out, Vivi looked away from Luffy. Staring at Crocodile with anger, the uncontrollable anger made her roar the name of the man opposite. Isn't this Princess Vivi? Why, as the Princess of Alabasta, actually got together with the pirates, is it to bring shame to Alabasta? It can only be said that he is a man who can sit in the position of 7 warlords of the sea. Madara can be seen in the depths of the city. As the mastermind of the conspiracy to conspire to capture Alabasta, when he saw Vivi, the Princess of Alabasta, he was still able to pretend without changing his face. Crocodile. Mr. Zero is Crocodile. Of those who followed Crocodile, apparently some did not know that their boss was Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Oh, boss, your identity has been exposed. Nicole Robin, who was standing beside Crocodile, heard the exclamation of Miss Christmas beside him, covered his mouth and chuckled, without the slightest sense of being a subordinate. The slim-fitting denim underwear revealed her slender and beautiful figure, and the smiling face also had a different kind of mature beauty. The skin color is not the blackish color of the anime 2 years ago, but the snow white like 2 years later. Ah, isn't this beautiful Miss I Sunday? Sanji was immediately attracted by Robin's chuckle and didn't care about the situation he was in. Hey, bastard with curly eyebrows, don't be ashamed here. For Sanji's behavior, Zoro immediately wanted to stop it. Don't talk too much. For Nicole Robin's teasing, Crocodile just glanced at her and gave a warning. Apparently he didn't know about the pact between Nicole Robin and Luffy. And the fat woman who was originally suspicious of Crocodile's identity stopped speaking under Crocodile's warning. It seems that my plan has been exposed, but do you think you can stop me with just a few of you? Crocodile knew his identity was revealed before he and Nicole Robin came out with them. But it's not a big deal, anyway, in his opinion, these people will never get out of here alive. Even though Luffy has the strength to compete with Hawkeye, Crocodile still doesn't think that the opponent is his opponent, at most it's just a little trickier. So, are some famous people so arrogant? Even though they have seen someone like Whitebeard, they still feel that they are invincible? Speaking of words, Luffy has never been afraid of anyone, and it is easy to provoke anger at the other party when he understands the other party's experience. As for how to know, why explain it to the enemy? Oh, kid, your tone is not small. Although he didn't know how the other party knew about it, Crocodile's expression darkened obviously after Luffy's words. For Whitebeard, Crocodile can be said to be quite hated, but even so, he is not a fledgling kid who can mock at will. I just don't know, is your strength as strong as rumored? If not, you can only die here. Crocodile looked at Luffy and the others with a wicked expression, obviously he was really motivated to kill. Princess Vivi, you shouldn't be here. If you go out to sea with Luffy, you might still have a way to survive, but now, your life. I'll take it. Arc Moon Dunes. Crocodile shot directly without notifying his agents. The originally normal arm completely turned into a huge meniscus made of sand, and then attacked the four of Luffy in a sweeping manner. Zoro, Sanji, be careful not to get hit by the sand, then you can choose your own opponent, and the crocodile will be handed over to me. Luffy explained to Zoro and Sanji, then stepped on and quickly appeared beside Vivi. Zoro and Sanji saw Crocodile whose arms turned into sand, and immediately understood that the other party was also Logia Demon Fruit Power. Without hesitation, the two quickly spread out to the side, and then looked at the four people beside Crocodile. Robin was excluded from the two, and Zoro believed in Luffy's vision. As for Sanji, it may be because of her beauty. The crescent-shaped sand dunes swept across, and Zoro and Sanji each retreated out of the attack range. And Luffy ran out of the casino with Vivi in his arms. The range here is too small, and the Logia Devil Fruit is a large-scale attack, and Vivi is a little dangerous here. It's no use running away. You guys get those two guys out and I'll go after Vivi and the Straw Hat. Looking at Luffy and Vivi who had already run out of the casino, Crocodile turned his head and explained to the five people behind him. Then the lower body turned into a salon scroll, catching up in the direction Luffy and Vivi left. Since the boss has given an order, let's act. Mr. One faithfully fulfilled Crocodile's orders, and looked at Zoro and Sanji who were still in the casino. After seeing the knife on Zoro's waist, he focused his attention on Zoro. Seeing that Mr. One had selected the target, Miss, who was his partner, also stretched his fingernails and looked at Zoro. I'll leave it to you here, I have other things to do. Now that the fight has started, Robin is naturally going to watch the battle outside. After all, this battle can be said to be related to his future destiny. Crocodile is looking for ancient weapon, and as a self who can read the text of history, it may still be useful to him now. But once he got the news, or got impatient, it was impossible for him, the one who knew his secret, to be able to leave alive. And if Luffy wins, he'll have his next home. And, judging from Luffy's attitude towards Vivi, maybe he can stay on that ship forever. Thinking of this, Robin said a word to the remaining agents without looking back, and then left. This woman, the remaining Miss Merry Christmas, an ugly fat woman, glanced at Robin who was leaving, and then turned to Sanji not far away. Then we don't have a choice, Mr. Four, we'll kill the yellow-haired curly brow. Oh. The same fat man replied slowly. Behind him is a huge metal baseball bat, and at his feet is a strange-looking dog. Hey, 2 on 4, how about it, green algae head, let's see who can deal with them first, I have an extra dog. Sanji lit a cigarette, looked at himself and Zoro with a clear division of labor, turned his head and proposed to Zoro. If you think you can't beat it, it doesn't matter if you leave it to me. Zoro pulled the 3 knives out of the scabbard and stared at the short-headed man who was also looking at him. I dare to say that, I only hope that you won't ask me to help you get revenge when you lose. Sanji replied sarcastically, bit the cigarette in his mouth, and looked at the fat duo. At the same time, Luffy, who had already run out of the casino, placed Vivi not far behind him and waited quietly for Crocodile to arrive. As a pirate who has been famous for a long time, there is still some air. The courage is not bad, but I just stood here and waited for me to come. Standing in front of Luffy again, Crocodile looked at Luffy, who had no intention of escaping, and praised him. Don't you know how much you have? To be honest, you are the 7 warlords of the sea, and you don't feel threatening at all to me. This is indeed true. Observation Haki can perceive the strength of the enemy, but in Luffy's perception, Crocodile does not have the strength to threaten himself. But Luffy's words undoubtedly stirred Crocodile's anger. What a fiery brat. Crocodile didn't want to continue listening to Luffy's sarcasm, and his right hand turned into gravel again, and it was a vertical strike directly in the direction of Luffy. Desert Sword. A sharp desert blade formed, with a large area attack unique to Logia Devil Fruit, and slammed into Luffy's direction. Where the desert blade flew over, a deep crack was directly cut into the ground. Luffy didn't mean to dodge, and Vivi was standing behind him. If he avoided it, the desert blade would undoubtedly split Vivi in half. And this is also what Crocodile did intentionally, forcing Luffy to resist his own attack, and if Luffy couldn't bear it, he could even kill him in one hit. Luffy. Vivi, who was staying not far behind Luffy, gave a worried cry. Crocodile's mighty attack made Vivi feel powerless. Can a real face such an attack? Luffy naturally heard Vivi's voice, but there was no need to respond, the battle might be over soon. Unlike Hawkeye's time, the reason why this time will end soon is not because the field is not hard enough. It's Crocodile, which really isn't that strong for a reason. The right fist covered with armament Haki swung towards the swiftly attacking desert blade. Even the second and third gears don't need to be opened, the desert blade that can easily cut through the ground is directly scattered by Luffy. Seeing this scene, Vivi breathed a sigh of relief, not expecting Luffy to be so strong. To block Crocodile's attack so lightly. Robin, who had just appeared on the roof not far away, happened to see this scene, and his eyes, which had always been calm, were also full of shock at this moment. Unlike Vivi, who was relieved, Crocodile's face was gloomy, and his already sinister face was even more vicious at this time. Luffy's strength is much stronger than he imagined, and he knows his own attacks. For a pirate with a bounty of less than 100 million, absolutely no one can take over his desert sword so easily. But Crocodile didn't mean to retreat. Even Whitebeard dared to be reckless, afraid of this new pirate who just came to the Grand Line. I look down on you a little bit. Crocodile looked at Luffy with a gloomy expression. He didn't expect that the biggest resistance to his plan was actually a rookie pirate. Look at me. It's better to say that you look down on yourself too much. Logia Devil Fruit is not invincible in this sea. Luffy continued to taunt. In the past, he could only see the enemy taunting the protagonist. Now Luffy always wants to taunt others. For those who don't know Haki, the Logia Demon Fruit power might be tough. But in the eyes of those who can skillfully play the two-color Haki, the Logia Demon Fruit power relies too much on the fruit ability and becomes their biggest shortcoming. Don't tell me you haven't met an enemy who can use Haki? Luffy's tone sounded a little surprised, as if it were an incredible thing. Kid with sharp teeth, let's take a look at the ability of Logia Devil Fruit called a Moving Disaster. I saw Crocodile stretch out his right hand, and a small Ceylon roll formed in his palm. With the continuous rotation of this Ceylon volume, more and more sand was absorbed, and then the originally small Ceylon volume began to grow continuously. Although I really want to see your so-called disaster ability, I don't have the habit of waiting for the enemy to make a big move. Luffy stepped on his feet, and his figure disappeared instantly. Crocodile looked around the first time Luffy disappeared, and at the same time, the sand continued to gather into the larger and larger volume of the Ceylon. However, at this moment, Luffy suddenly appeared behind Crocodile. As Crocodile's pupils shrank, the fist covering armament Haki directly hit his back, which was too late to turn around to defend. Boom. Without any chance of elementalization, Crocodile was directly knocked into the air by Luffy's attack. Crocodile vomited blood and flew out backwards, and even the condensing Ceylon volume collapsed at this moment. Instead of chasing after the victory, Luffy just stood in the position where Crocodile used to be, and now the two of them have completely changed their positions. Although he was knocked out by Luffy, fortunately, Crocodile's instinct to fight all year round as a pirate is still there. When he was about to land, his body elements turned into sand, preventing him from hitting the ground and causing more serious injuries. After landing, Crocodile reacted instantly. Instead of attacking Luffy, he turned to attack Vivi not far away. At the same time as he got up, Crocodile's right hand turned into gravel again, forming a desert blade and swiping towards Vivi's location. Crocodile's surprise attack didn't surprise Luffy. This is the case in the original book. When I first met Luffy, I was careless because of the difference in strength between the two sides. But when he was forced to a certain extent by Luffy, he tried to kill Luffy by any means. Now Crocodile turned and attacked Vivi, as Luffy expected. Facing the sharp desert blade slashing at him, Vivi didn't have the slightest fear in his eyes, just looked at Crocodile with blood on the corner of his mouth in front of him. That peaceful face was in stark contrast to Crocodile's ferocious face at this time. It was still a punch that shattered the desert blade that could split the earth. However, unlike just now, Luffy, who appeared in front of Vivi again, had red skin and steam all over his body. Reciprocity, you can also take me up, Crocodile, don't die. The sudden appearance of Luffy in front of Vivi made Crocodile's eyes go wild. That attitude was completely different from the previous one, which made Crocodile feel extremely dangerous. When Luffy posed a punch, Crocodile's feet turned into a saloon and slammed backwards. Can you escape? This villainy-like statement makes Luffy a little on the edge. However, the movements of his subordinates did not stop because of this. The jet black armament haki covered the entire right hand, and a layer of sakura-colored film flowed on it. Luffy pulled his right fist back, seemingly gathering strength. After using emission for a period of time, Luffy has been able to use it proficiently. Now, taking advantage of this opportunity, it is time to test the teleportation release. Crocodile, who is constantly moving away, always has a feeling like a on his back, which is not weakened by the distance. Finally, Haki's condensation is complete. Feeling the flow of haki wrapped around his fist, Luffy slammed his drawn right fist in the direction Crocodile flew away. A sakura-colored pistol flew out from Luffy's right fist and reached Crocodile's back in an instant. Sakura-colored aurora pillars penetrated Crocodile's body without hindrance. Different from the air column emitted by the third gear, after this aurora pierced through Crocodile, the power of emission quickly destroyed Crocodile's body. In an instant, the aurora bored through the nearby internal organs and was completely destroyed. And Crocodile, who was still flying, froze suddenly, and fell from the air with his eyes wide open. Blood kept dripping from the corners of the mouth and the pierced area. This is not the common problem of observation Haki's Logia demon fruit power. Without being able to accurately predict where and when the attack will arrive, it is impossible to elementalize that area into a hole to avoid Haki attacks. Looking at Crocodile lying motionless on the ground, Luffy sensed it with observation Haki. Although the injury was quite serious, he did not die immediately. But without treatment, death is only a matter of time. This trick is called emission rushed. Luffy is also too lazy to take a dignified name. If this move is used as a close-range attack, it will be even more powerful with the third gear. The double attack of the body watch in the body is when this move is most powerful. However, attacking like that is actually no different from a normal attack with Haki except in terms of power. RO. Luffy, as Crocodile dead? From the Crocodile attacking himself, to Luffy blasting the Sandblade, to Luffy shooting down the fleeing Crocodile, it all happened in a fraction of the time. Vivi looked at Crocodile lying on the ground in disbelief. It's not dead yet, but if no one saves it, it's not far from death. Luffy is considering whether to make up for the knife, whether it is more useful for Crocodile to live, or to kill him and bet on Sand Fruit's rebirth. However, Luffy was soon relieved. In observation Haki's perception, a group of Marines were already rushing over. The lead is still the old acquaintance Smoker, but next to him, there is an unfamiliar face. You are quite timely. Looking at the group of Marines in front of him, Luffy teased the leading Smoker. To actually beat Crocodile, Hina is curious about you. Before Smoker could speak, the pink-haired Marine next to him looked at Luffy curiously. As Smoker's old partner, he has naturally heard some things about Luffy. And because of Smoker, Hina has heard about how Luffy became a pirate. I just didn't expect to meet for the first time when the other side defeated Crocodile. Oh. Curious about me? Why don't you come on my ship? It's a good relationship with the Smoker, and it's probably not one of those rigid Marines. Because of Marine's presence, Vivi stood behind Luffy for a while, and she didn't need to come out and say anything right now. Luffy didn't hate the Marines, so the invitation wasn't a joke. Okay. Straw Hat Luffy, we're not here to argue with you. How about Crocodile leaving it to us Marine? Hina next to him seemed to want to say something, but was interrupted by Smoker. When invited by pirates to board the ship or something, when there are subordinates present, it is better not to let the other party say too much. Is this for a bargain? Luffy's words obviously made Smoker very upset, but he couldn't find a suitable statement for a while, so he could only smash his teeth and swallow in his stomach. It's not a bargain. After I left, I reported the situation here to the superior. Unhappy and unhappy, Smoker still has to tell the other party what he told him. The world government is very dissatisfied with Crocodile's behavior, so it is decided that after you have fought him, if you can win, you will take his place as 7 warlords of the sea. If it were other pirates, Smoker would not have communicated the fate of the 7 warlords of the sea. But if the target was Straw Hat Crew, Smoker took over the mission. But Smoker doesn't hold out much hope for this. After all, Luffy doesn't seem like the kind of person who can accept world government orders. 7 warlords of the sea. Luffy touched his chin, but didn't refuse directly. Unexpectedly, the world government would actually want to make itself the 7 warlords of the sea. Is it because someone inside is pushing, or something else? Oh? How would someone like you be interested in 7 warlords of the sea? Smoker was a little surprised that Luffy didn't refuse. Luffy's previous performance was not like someone who would work for the world government. Luffy, that woman. Seeing that Luffy was thinking and seemed to have plans to agree, Vivi had to remind Luffy. Knowing the existence of Robin from Luffy's mouth, Vivi felt that if the world government had been informed of the news, there might not have been the invitation as it is now. Hearing Vivi's reminder, Luffy was stunned, but he was negligent. However, the existence of Robin is not a big problem. After all, she has not been exposed yet. If she wants to, she can completely hide her existence. Also, becoming the 7 warlords of the sea may be of great help in future operations, especially during the Summit War. But whether the advantages outweigh the disadvantages or the disadvantages outweigh the advantages, Luffy can't tell right now. If you choose to become 7 warlords of the sea, then you will undoubtedly be on the cusp of the storm. Zoro and the others have not fully grown in strength, so they may not be able to withstand it. Smoker, who had been paying attention to Luffy, naturally noticed Vivi's movements, but didn't hear what Vivi said. Smoker just wanted to know Luffy's answer right now, he didn't care about the rest. But Crocodile seemed to be dying, and Smoker couldn't let him die here. Although it is a good thing to die of a vicious pirate, if sand fruit is obtained by someone with ulterior motives, it may be a crocodile again. The crocodile can be handed over to you, but for the position of the 7 warlords of the sea, you should hire another wise man. In exchange, what will you use in exchange for him? Luffy doesn't have the bee of White Hit's workers. If 3 Admiral came, at this stage, he may only be able to recognize it by pinching his nose. But just with these people in front of him, he is not qualified to hand over Crocodile for free. Still hesitating about what to do with Crocodile, but now that Marine needs it, Luffy might be able to get some benefits from it. Hina is very puzzled by rejecting Shichibukai's invitation and yet daring to offer conditions. Although Luffy took out Crocodile, could he and Smoker still be unable to beat him? The pink-haired female Marine was a little unconvinced and wanted to continue to say something, but was immediately stopped by Smoker. Hina doesn't understand Luffy's strength. How can she not know it? Perhaps the current Marine, unless a Buster Call or Admiral comes out, it is impossible to keep the opponent. Before inviting him to become Marine, Sengoku revealed his strength. And I have personally tried it myself, and it is impossible to beat each other by myself and Hina alone. Don't you Marines hate the Shichibukai system? Why, shouldn't it be a good thing for you guys that I refuse to be a Shichibukai? Not caring about the other party's unconvincing expression, Luffy was a little curious about their attitude. The relatively honest Marines like Smoker seem to hate the 7 warlords of the sea system in the original book. Why is he now looking forward to becoming the 7 warlords of the sea? Let's ignore this. Let's treat Crocodile first. My mission is not to bring back Crocodile's corpse. Smoker stared into Luffy's eyes and said that if the other party refused, he might be ready to die. Smoker didn't believe the other party would let him go over and over again. Yes, but you'd better decide what to exchange for it, or I can cripple Crocodile once and kill him a second time. Even the Marines here have to stay. As Smoker thought, although he still admired them, he couldn't tolerate their provocation again and again. I'll contact Marshal Sengoku right away, and if you want, you can listen in when I call the bug. Seeming to understand what Luffy was saying, Smoker responded quickly. At the same time, he waved his hand and asked the soldiers under him to handcuff the unconscious Crocodile, and then several medical soldiers came out to rescue him on the spot. Judging from the appearance of the handcuffs, it should be sea stone handcuffs. Smoker and the others know that Crocodile is the power of the Logia demon fruit, and it is impossible to make such a rudimentary mistake. Is it okay to just let them go? Nicole Robin, who came down from the roof not far away, looked at Marine who had walked away and Crocodile who had been carried away, and asked Luffy. How? I have fulfilled the agreed conditions, how about you? Are you ready to join us? Looking at Nicole Robin who was approaching, Luffy did not answer her question, but mentioned the agreement between the two. Sure. Want me to say some oath of allegiance? Captain. Nicole Robin answered Luffy without hesitation. Instead of continuing to hide in Tibet to find a hiding place, it is better to agree to Luffy happily, and the strength shown by Luffy is enough to protect himself. You are welcome, then, Miss Robin. Seeing Robin agree, a smile appeared on Luffy's face. Luffy, just let Smoker leave. There's nothing unhappy about Vivi's former foe becoming Luffy's sidekick again. It's just that the group of Marines just left only a verbal promise and took away the seriously injured Crocodile, which made Vivi a little uneasy. As for the Marines, Vivi, the princess of Alabasta, should have believed them, but now she has shown distrust of these Marines. It can only be said that what Crocodile of the 7 warlords of the sea did, Vivi was completely disappointed by Marine and the world government. Again, if it weren't for Alabasta's princess, Vivi would definitely go out to sea with Luffy. Don't worry, it's only 200 million to 300 million Baileys. Marine should not offend me to death for this Bailey. Although only a few 100 million Baileys were exchanged for Crocodile, Luffy did not feel that there was any loss. Originally, even if you kill Crocodile yourself, there is a high probability that you will not get sand fruit, so it is better to give him to Marine. Not only did he get Bailey, but maybe Crocodile could help him in some ways in the future, provided that he could escape from the underwater prison. To say that Marine will default on their debts, it can only be said that they have lost their minds, and the mere 200 million to 300 million Baileys are exchanged for the stability of Straw Hat Crew, which is not a loss. It's not that Luffy doesn't want better things, but like Devil Fruit, Marine basically won't agree, and even if he agrees, it's probably some of the most useless fruits. Instead, ask Bailey from the start. By the way, how are they, Mr. Zoro? When I was interrupted by Marine, I forgot about Sanji and Zoro who were still in the casino. After Marine left, Vivi suddenly remembered that someone was still in the casino. Zoro and Sanji have already dealt with the enemy, we can just go and find them. Luffy's observation hockey was always on, Zoro and the others Luffy kept an eye on. Facing the powerful enemy in the original book that he fought so hard to defeat, Zoro, who is now able to cut iron, can easily solve the combination of Mr. 1 and Miss S 2 fingers. As for Sanji, although he was a little embarrassed, but with his speed, there is no big problem in dealing with Mr. 4 and Miss Merry Christmas. But the scene is a bit miserable, and the entire casino is now full of potholes. Not only the ground is full of potholes, but even the surrounding buildings were torn apart by artillery bombardment. Then, should we prepare to go to Alabasta next? Now that Crocodile is settled, as long as the news reaches King Cobra and the rebel leader Kosha, the war should be over. Crocodile has been dealt with, his abilities have failed, and the rain problem in Alabasta should now be dealt with. There is one more question. Robin, who had been listening to the conversation between the two, suddenly spoke up. Luffy and Vivi turned their heads to her at the same time. Crocodile planted a bomb somewhere in Alabasta, you need to get that out of the way. How come? Vivi was surprised, completely unexpected that Crocodile could do this. When will the bomb explode? Luffy was not too surprised, after all, it was in the original book. It's just that Crocodile has been defeated in advance, and I don't know when the bomb will explode. According to the plan, it should be 3 days later, but now that Crocodile has been defeated by you, there should be no danger of explosion for the time being. Robin said uncertainly, after all, Crocodile's personality is really unpredictable for Robin. If he left anything behind, Alabasta might be in danger of being bombed. Anyway, let's go to Alabasta first. As long as I get there, I can find the location of the bomb. As for how to take it out, I will talk about it later. There's no use rushing here now, and Vivi doesn't have phone bugs. But even if there are telephone bugs, it is estimated that it is difficult to find them with those ordinary soldiers. Luffy didn't know the specific situation of Alabasta, and just relying on the comics he had read before, there was no way to remotely command. Princess Vivi, Miss Robin. Just when Vivi was still worried about the situation in Alabasta, Sanji's voice came from not far away. Although the person was supported by Zoro, after seeing Vivi and Robin, people had the illusion that the injury was healed. Hey, bastard cook, if you're hurt, go away by yourself. Seeing that Sanji turned into a nympho when he saw a woman, Zoro couldn't help roaring, but he didn't let go of the hand holding Sanji. Sanji didn't quarrel with Zoro this time. Seeing that Zoro easily solved the fingers of Mr. One and Miss. But it was very difficult for him, and he even suffered serious injuries to solve the other two. This makes Sanji more eager to become stronger, and it seems that since the two met, he has regarded Zoro as a competitor. It seems that Mr. Swordsman and Mr. Chef are very powerful. The combination of Mr. One and Mr. Point 4 can be said to be the most powerful existence in the Baroque Work Club other than Crocodile. Seeing that the two people who came back were fine except for Sanji's minor injury, Robin felt that he might be able to stay on this boat a little longer. With the strength that Luffy has just shown, there is obviously still room to deal with Crocodile, and I don't know if there is any chance of winning against Admiral. Thinking of this, Robin couldn't help but look gloomy, and the existence of Aokiji seemed to be his dream. If Luffy knew what Robin was thinking now, he might be angry with Aokiji. If Aokiji really planned to do something, Robin would not be able to live until now. Looking at your appearance, have you joined us? Although everyone on the Mary knew about Luffy and Robin's agreement before, they didn't expect the other party to be so straightforward. That's it, we're going to Alabasta right away. As for this guy. On the Mary, Luffy briefly explained what had happened, and then looked at Von Cry, who had been tied up. Although the ability is good, people should be okay, but this appearance is really a bit unappetizing. Mr. O has been solved by you. Marianu's abilities had been disarmed, and Von Clay's ridiculous face was full of shock after hearing that Luffy had taken out Crocodile. And what's even more surprising is that, listening to Luffy's meaning, the real identity of his own boss, Mr. Zero, is actually the Sand Crocodile, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. Can you let the slave family get on your boat? Anyway, the old boss is gone, so just change to a new boss. No. Absolutely not. Hearing that Von Clay actually wanted to join his group, Sanji, who was being treated by Chopper, immediately jumped up. Don't move, Sanji. The wound is about to open again. Sanji's violent movements undoubtedly annoyed Chopper, and he patted directly at the place Sanji had just wrapped up. It hurts, Chopper, you slapped the wound open. Sanji, who didn't feel anything at first, finally couldn't help screaming under Chopper's continuous slaps. Ah, I'm sorry, I'll reband it for you right away. Realizing that something was wrong, Chopper was in a hurry. Does Mr. Sanji hate slaves so much? For Sanji's firm refusal, Von Cry made a heartbroken expression, and when he finished, he gave Sanji a wink. Damn bastard, don't wink casually. Sanji was frantic again, and if it wasn't for Chopper grabbing his hand and wrapping it, he might have kicked it. There are no more people on my ship at the moment. This is the truth. When the capital of 7 waters is reached, Thousand Sunny will have to make it bigger than the original. Luffy has no plans to build a fleet, but a large fleet like the original can be considered. That's a pity, since Captain Luffy has no plans to leave the slave family can only continue to wander the world. Von Cree, who had been untethered, moved his wrists and jumped onto the side of the Mary. If it weren't for a peculiar attire, the backs that stood facing each other would be rather unrestrained. But thanks to Captain Luffy's grace of not killing, if there is a need in the future, the slave family will definitely help. Looking back at Luffy and saying something, Von Cry jumped directly off the Mary. I didn't expect Crocodile to have such people. As for Von Cry, except for Sanji's inexplicable enemy, the others did not have any ill feelings towards him. Then, we should continue to set off, the last stop of Alabasta, the capital of Alabasta. Luffy stood on the sheep's head of the Mary, and also glanced at Von Clay, who had gone far. Perhaps his large fleet would be even larger than the original. From Rain to Alabasta, just cross the Santo River. Coming back to Alabasta soon, Vivi was feeling both joy and anxiety. Once the bomb problem in Alabasta is solved, Luffy will be leaving. Vivi glanced at Luffy, who was standing on the bow, bit her lip, and it was time for her to make up her mind. Nami, who was standing next to Vivi, glanced at Vivi with a feeling, but didn't say anything, and directly directed the men to set sail. This kind of thing, I can't help myself, I can't even give advice. Zoro, you didn't kill the 4 Baroque agents, did you? Remembering that during the opening of Observation Haki, I didn't feel the breath of Devil Fruit's rebirth, Luffy asked Zoro, who was pulling the anchor. No, Sanji and I just knocked them out. Zoro didn't know why Luffy asked. What's the matter, do you need us to kill you next time? No, just follow your own ideas. Except for a few specific devil fruits, Luffy is not particularly interested in other people's lives. Unless you really can't stand it. For Luffy's unreasonable inquiries, Zoro had no plans to pursue them, and was used to Luffy's sudden actions from time to time anyway. Just treat it as cheap marine. By the way, Robin. Luffy looked at Robin, who hadn't spoken since getting on the boat. Hearing Luffy calling his name, Robin looked at Luffy curiously. Is something wrong? Captain Luffy. There is a historical text in Alabasta, and that is the message that Crocodile mistook for ancient weapon. Now that Robin has boarded his own ship, the promise to her naturally needs to be fulfilled, and there are such conditions right in front of him. Captain Luffy really knows everything. No one knows about Crocodile's search for ancient weapon except himself. And even so, Luffy could even know such a thing. It seems that this man still has a lot of secrets. Perhaps, there is one more reason to come to this ship. After reminding Robin, Luffy stopped talking and turned to think about Marianu's abilities. Alabasta's journey is coming to an end, and it's time to start thinking about the viability of this capability. Marianu herself does not know Haki. In this case, how can her suggestion ability mobilize the power of Haki? Luffy touched her chin, maybe to get her a feel for Haki's form? But a direct attack definitely won't work. It is estimated that you will cry for a long time with one punch, which is another difficult thing to do. Luffy had a headache, and there were no professionals on board. Thinking alone, he really didn't know where to start. Luffy shook his head and gave up thinking after a while. The Mary moved slowly, and it was about to leave Alabasta, and when it arrived in Alabasta, it was almost time to say goodbye to Vivi. I'm a little worried. This Marianu's matter has no clue, and another headache has invaded Luffy's mind. Otherwise, prepare a devil fruit for Vivi. If Zhengchu can get thunder fruit, what will happen if no one eats it? Otherwise he will just come back and eat it directly for Vivi. It can also be regarded as giving Vivi enough self-protection ability. After all, it is thunder fruit. Even if you don't need to develop it deeply, you should be able to protect yourself in Alabasta by releasing lightning. With that in mind, Luffy glanced back at Vivi, who was silent. Seeming to feel Luffy's gaze, Vivi raised his head again to look at Luffy. The eyes of the two crossed in the air, and then quickly moved away from each other.